You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
About it. Sometimes that's all it is just talking about it.
Yeah.
You know, and one, that's the hardest thing to do as a male adult. But and two, really everybody has problems with that. Everybody is so busy with their own lives that we don't really take, because we don't sit down and interact anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't really have opportunity to listen to people's problems, because what we post isn't real.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like, oh, pictures of family and vacations, whatever. And then the next week you're like, oh, so-and-so's getting divorced. I just saw this family vacation. So regardless, this is one of the reasons we feel sad, is because what I think my change and my biggest aha moment is perception.
Yeah.
You know, it was that. It was just a perception. And you said it, and you hit the nail right on the head when you're like, you have all of these things pile up on you. You know, people are dying. You can't get to that one goal that it's so easy for everybody else to just, people are just getting pregnant, but that is one of the hardest things for you. And people out here just taking advantage of it. You know what I mean? And nobody understands that struggle that you're going through. And what is happiness? You know, because everybody else is showing you what happiness is. It's family, it's money, it's vacation. You know, are those people really happy?
Yeah.
You know, is it really what they want? And pretty much that's what I came down to. It was just the perception of everything. And, you know, going through the issues with being sick, and at that same time having my large intestine removed. And my wife almost died when she had my daughter. Then she developed cancer because of that. Then once we got over that and we're starting to fix, I get medically retired. And right after I got medically retired, I got shot. And after I got shot, it was 5 blood clots. So we can. And on top of that, talk about PTSD and the injuries and the sicknesses that go with that. And that's always down. You know, if we focus, if I really focused on that, and I did, just like anybody else. I'm not saying that I have a fix or there is a fix to this, but it was then I realized, like, I'm really stressing out about this every single day that I can't take a step forward. The more that I focus on it, I'm just taking that step back. And it was like a simple looking at a meme on Instagram or TikTok where a cartoon picture shows somebody on one side of the bus and it's beautiful, but then on the other side of the bus, it's just the mountains, and in the mountains you can't really see anything. It's kind of ugly looking. It's just not what the other side of the window, but they're traveling the same path. You know, the bus is going the same route. It just depends on what side of the bus you're sitting on, what your view is.
Yeah.
So then that's it. You know, if we wake up every morning, or if we're sitting through something and we're experiencing it and you're telling yourself, this fucking sucks, then it sucks.
And I think that's where we get stuck, man. I think the two of us both, Nita and I both get to the point where we focus on how bad it sucks. You know, and the good thing is we never hang out there too long. You know, but it's like, but we're never allow ourselves to distance ourselves from that. You know, to where we've gotten past it. You know, because we haven't gotten past it.
I don't think you can. I don't care what anybody says. We just had a dinner with some of our veterans that were on the first deployment, and then is when you realize we're all older now. It's 15 years plus later. You know, you have commanders that had hundreds or thousands of people under them. Then the next level and the next level, whether the sergeant only had 4 or 5 guys underneath them. But regardless, everybody at every level is dealing really with the exact same thing in the exact same way. And we never talk about it. We're always stuck in those horrible moments that we've gone through, and you're getting beat up because everybody's telling you, oh, it's going to get easier in time, it gets better, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. No matter if it's a loss of a relative, no matter if it's war. My dad every time I saw my dad and he would go through that experience, you know, Vietnam was in the 70s, you know, and then it's 2000 and he's still experiencing the same thing. He's still going through those flashbacks before he passed away, or it is hard to talk to him. So it never goes away. The only thing we do is we just learn how to hide it better. We learn how to deal with that emotion, and that's it. So that was the other part of my perception of everything. I had to turn, for me, everything as a teaching point to myself. If I got through it today, then that means I didn't die and I made it. So that means I can deal with this for a little bit longer. It means I can deal with not walking for a month, or when I had my bag, I had a bag for a year. All of those little things that if you were to say now, like, oh, if you lose your leg, what am I going to do now if I lose my leg, or if I lost my arm, or if I lost my eyesight? Well, any of those things can happen to you. But when it hasn't happened yet, you're always telling yourself you don't think you could get through it, or you don't know how you're going to deal with it. But the moment it does, there's only two things that are going to happen. You're either going to deal with it, or you let it get to you. And that's it. That it is as simple as that. When people always talk about, I don't know how you get through these injuries. Like, that's hard. I don't have a choice. I have no other choice. It's either this or give up. And I feel too young to do that. I've gone through too much to do that, or I feel like people are watching. So I don't want to be the reason somebody else gives up. Yeah. I want to be that reason why somebody doesn't. And that's just it. Those are the two options that when all of this is really beating us up and is really on it, and now you have an audience, to me, that's like a responsibility. You have this audience, you have this people listen to you. What if you just gave up? What if all of your audience, to them, it's that easy now. Like, oh, Gabe just gave up, or so-and-so famous just gave up, because we're following everybody on the internet. We know that those hardships that we're going through, man, it affected this person that much. Well, to me, that's like a responsibility. Like, now that I've coached these people, or I go to the gym and I have this conversation with you and I talk about PTSD, or if I coached you in the military or I was your NCO, now I feel the responsibility to, like, man, I can't give up. People are watching. And for me, sometimes it is a therapy when it does help somebody. Even though if they don't tell you, you can see it. You've helped somebody move, hooked up somebody with a contractor, or a coach for a gym, or with a nonprofit that can get them money for their house, or whatever it be, even though, or whatever it be, because you didn't give up, or because you kept going, or because you learned from that hardship that you went through, you were able to push that on somebody else. And then to be able to see that, to see them have that whatever little bit of success, whether they know or know it came from you or not, to me, that's a therapy. Yeah. To me, that's like, all right, I helped somebody out, or I by my going through what I went through, it was able to benefit this person. So that just was my change of my perception, that everything that I went through, whether it was surgery, combat, being shot, going through what I went through with my wife, everything was a teaching moment. And if I didn't think of it that way, then that became the stressor. Then, well, why is this happening to me? Why question? If I was more religious, like, what, golly, God, like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong that all of these bad things are happening to me? But that's it. We tell ourselves bad things. Man, I still got both my legs. Yeah. I still got my life. That was the other thing. Being at the Warrior Transition Unit here at BAMSI, everybody's hurt. Everybody's sick. Everybody's almost dying or has almost died. Everybody is going through something. And that day that you're at your worst, in the hospital, that is, when we were there, you can hear somebody screaming because they're getting their third-degree burn rubbed off. Or they're screaming because they have a double amputation and they have all that nerve damage in their legs and their nubs, and it's all growing back. Like, we think we have an idea, but we don't. Yeah. And when we do, guess what? There's still somebody worse or going through it worse. And when you see them thrive and like not give up, or like, hey, this guy's just walking on the floor with his nubs and he's getting along, he's learning how to adapt, then why can't I do that? I don't think we're as special as we think we are. We give credit to people like, oh, he's a movie star.
Yeah. I think part of like I guess watching you from a distance, I noticed that, and I think it's a kind of a cop out at times, because I'll see you and I'll go, Renee's just a fucking machine, you know, and to hear you say things like, no, I still have bad days and I still have a hard time and I still second guess certain things, you know, it starts to put things in perspective a little bit better, to where you can say, Renee's not a machine, you know, Renee's a man, you know, and if Rene can endure the things that he's endured, I can do it, you know, because a lot of times it's easy, like I said, it's a cop out to go, oh well, fuck, that's Rene, you know, I couldn't do that, and you know, when you sit there and you hear you explain it and talk about that kind of stuff, there's more of a the reality of it is I guess exposed to me more, to where I can go, oh, you know what? He has the same problems that I do have, and he's just keep on trucking. You know, he's not giving in. He's pushing through, and if Rene can do it, well, I can do it, because in my mind I go, you know, I look at, even with your blood clot, you know, issues and some of the stuff that you've had to go through with that. You know, I sit there and I go, man, it's unbelievable. And yeah, it is. But it, like you said earlier, you don't have a choice. You know, you're at a certain point in that healing that you just have to make it through the whole thing. You know, and there is no other option. You know, and it's nice to hear you say that, because, like I said, there's times where I go, well, you know, with your powerlifting and the events that you do and the Highland game stuff, it's kind of like, you know, well, fuck yeah, Rene can do that shit. You know, he's Rene. You know, and a lot of times we just chalk it up to Rene's a different animal. You know, and in a way you are, but at the same time, you've become that through your experiences and through your mindset. But it's something that I and other people can do as well.
And that's it. The experiences. That is the only reason that I can see that I differ from the majority of people.
You know what? Let's put this shit on real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been recording a little bit.
Okay.
But how does the sound to you? Is it loud or is it not too loud?
No, that's not too loud.
Okay. So we've been recording for about 12 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm here with Rene Maldonado.
Yes, sir.
And I just didn't want to cut him off, so that's why we just let Rene keep talking. But Rene's a OG at heavy metal, and we've been talking about some of his experiences, things that he's endured, and mindset, I guess, to get through those things. So let's kind of go back a little bit to you were talking about your family history and how you've had people who've fought, served.
Pretty much I've served in every major conflict that the U.S. has been involved with, to include back in the day when there was Pancho Villa, and, you know, a majority of my family coming from Mexico, or at least this is the story that I hear from my grandmother.
Yeah.
And that was just the story that man, I used to love hearing, that we had the more Native American looking part of our family, and all these old pictures, and there's pictures of like that my grandmother told me that I don't remember whose grandfather or whose father it was fighting on Pancho Villa's side. And then when my father passed away, we were able to get some pictures of my grandfather, who I never met, who was in World War II, and you see him like right after in Germany, walking through the streets with his uniform. My dad joined for Korea and for the Korean War under his brother's name. So he actually was underage. He was 16 at the time, and his brother had been killed in California. So my dad was trying to go to war in the Korean War and got caught. They held him back, reinstated him because he had already moved up in rank, and then ended up going to Vietnam. And then his brother, my uncle, was in the special forces, jumped in, broke his back, and that was his career.
And that was in Vietnam?
Yeah, that was his Vietnam experience. Outside of my immediate family, my uncle served in Vietnam. My mother's brother served in Vietnam. My brother, who passed away right before, a couple of months before I was born, served in the military. My son, matter of fact, right now, he just took the ASVAB test. He's going the hardest route, which is the 18 X-ray, which is going right into special forces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just in our blood, you know. I don't know what it is. I don't know, you know, I think that's just the pride in it, you know, of knowing that your family has fought in these conflicts, that it's not even for us. You know, the majority of the time that you go out there, that you join the military, it's always for the person next to you. You know, I know we just had Memorial Day and everybody is drinking and celebrating. They're like, oh, thank the veterans. And, you know, I don't see it that way. I don't see it as, hey, you guys should be partying on the lake and you get 20% discount on everything. And
it's probably more of a somber thing, huh?
Well, I'll kind of go into that. The reason why I don't like it and why the celebration for it, more so Memorial Day than any other day. But to me, knowing that all of those sacrifices were not for that main reason. We're not for you to go have a party and go drinking on the lake and to get all of these discounts. You know, it was just for the opportunity. Whatever that opportunity was, to me, that's what it was more for. That everybody that died, everybody that served, that everybody was doing this just so you were given that opportunity. Whatever opportunity that is. And so that one becomes a little bit of a sore day for me, you know, especially because Memorial Day just happened. But to come from that family or knowing that there's somebody that's fought during one of these major conflicts, and that the majority of males from my immediate family have joined or been in the military. That's just a pride thing that I don't know, I've always had since I was a kid. I dreamt about joining the military. I hated the military growing up, but Dad would tell me a story about Vietnam, and I would be dreaming that I was in Vietnam that night. So I don't know. I didn't really see myself doing anything else. I played with toy soldiers. I would sit with binoculars and hide and look through them through the bushes, and that's actually what I ended up doing for a job in the military. But that just having that little bit of information that everybody fought in a war, you know, I walk around with that, you know, even though you'll never know unless we sit here and talk about it. Yeah. But that is one of the biggest badge of honors that I get to have, or nobody can tell, but you know, I walk around with that every single day, and to know and to continue that tradition within my family, you know, that to me, that's a big thing. And being in Mill City, USA, you know, even what better place to be. But, you know, as we go into these conversations about experiences and how we deal with life, that's where I learned a lot of that was from the military, and was from those conversations, like my father going through experiences, and my uncle that went through his experience. And every once in a while, you have these conversations with people that have been in these conflicts or just been in the military period.
Is that I mean, you say every now and then, but is that something that that you guys shared stories or you heard stories from them regularly, or is that something that...
My father never did to anybody. He never talked to anybody but me. I might share one or two stories. If you ask any of my a lot of my friends now are from high school. You know, we kind of stayed friends since high school, football players type of thing. And they might know one or two stories, but not really. You know, unless you ask, it's not necessarily not bragging, but sometimes you don't want to feel like you're bragging. I've never wanted to feel like my experiences were something to brag about, and they do get a little rough talking about. But I was a peer support group leader for San Antonio for years, so I did more of hearing those stories versus than telling my story. So for some people, it is a really good thing. It's a really good thing to get it off their chest. And the majority of the time, they don't get off their chest unless they know you've been through it. Because it is hard to talk about, and it is hard to not sound, and you were talking about it earlier, that guy that's smiling, during the middle of everything. It's hard for people not to understand that. Like, that is exciting. You do get the adrenaline rush, and we are laughing. And as long as nobody got hurt or it didn't get too crazy, it's crazy the feeling that you have with those group of guys or in any situation. And when we get to talk about the event that happened in Houston, I experienced something that most people will not even understand and can look at you. Almost like oh man, this guy's a little bit crazy, or he's a warmonger, but that's not it. It's just
the exposure that you had to the training for something like that.
And you just don't say those things because most people won't understand. So you wait until you have conversations with people that have been in those scenarios.
So do y'all have meetings or something where veterans can come together and have those kind of conversations? Because I'd imagine, like with Nina's dad rarely opens up. He served in Korea and Vietnam. And he rarely opens up, and he's got really bad survivor's remorse. He's got I think he's got one Purple Heart that's still in the box that they gave it to him in, and it's in his sock drawer, and he never pulls it out. And he just I guess now I think he's 89, 88, something like that. So he never talks about it. Every now and then he'll give you a story. It's just random and out of the blue. It's like, and it's like now all these years later, and he's almost 90, and it's still heavy on his heart to tell some of those stories. But it's almost like he has to get rid of it. And you don't provoke conversation with him. You just sit there and listen.
That to answer your first question, yes, there is a lot of places for people to just go talk, here in San Antonio. I mean, there's really no reason why any veteran should be struggling if they took the opportunity to just look for that resource. There is a million resources out there, whether it's PTSD, whether it's military sexual trauma counseling, whether it's marriage counseling, and then other ways that you deal with stress, like through sports, fishing, boating. I mean, there is something for everybody out there. You just need to take the opportunity to look. Yeah. And throughout these years, I sometimes feel as veterans in the military, you had a sergeant, and that sergeant kind of looked everything up for you, and he kind of told you what to do. And if you didn't do it, it didn't matter. You didn't really have a choice. You had to do it anyways. So when people leave the military, they don't really get that. If you don't have a spouse or a friend or somebody that's checking you, always checking you, then, and when I mean check is like, hey, you gotta, holding you accountable is what I meant. Then we don't really do that for ourselves. We don't really focus on ourselves as much as we need to. And in the military,
is there a single source that people can go to, like a website or something that has all those?
There was something called Texas Serves that was starting a couple of years back, about 5 years ago, but I don't remember if it got off the ground. There's been a national, everybody's been trying to do, and I might be mistaken, it might already be out there, but there's a national database, or they were working on a national database that had everything nonprofit wise. Mm-hmm. And all you had to do was put your profile, and then the organizations would pop up. I don't know if I have never followed back up on it to double check, but I will give you an answer to know if that is out there. But no, as of right now, I don't think there is. And I think that's a huge problem. Because if you're not looking for it, if social media is your way of information, and you're not following that organization or one of those organizations, then you don't see it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think a lot of people do. A lot of people go to, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and like you said, they go and follow, let's say, the food bank, and that's a good place where I go and go, oh, the food bank has an event going on, but if I don't go see it on Instagram, I don't necessarily go to their website.
Right.
So,
right. And that is it too. I've worked with Wounded Warrior Project for years and did the peer support group leader, which pretty much meant we held meetings. To answer your question, we would hold those type of meetings, but I don't like going to meetings. Mm-hmm. I don't like going to your typical let's sit and talk about it, only because sometimes people's experiences would almost like if you're boasting, like mine is worse than yours or my injury is worse than yours. So I wanted to get away from just talking about experiences and rather let's just figure out how to way to deal with stress.
So it'd be more of like, I guess when you say that, I'm envisioning like a
cooking class,
or something where veterans are getting together and they're doing an activity and not necessarily staring at each other, sharing stories. It's more of a hey, we're doing something together and we're
dealing with the stress. That's it. Why do we really need to sit around and go over this stuff? Let it come out like water. Let it happen naturally. Mm-hmm. Not even for some veterans to talk about it and to be around each other. Sometimes I have triggers, when you're telling me your stories and you're going through it, and it might not be as visual in my face, but sometimes it is kind of crazy when I say I deal with my stuff too. Like I can hear that in the background, or I can hear, or I can smell explosion, or I can smell blood, like just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So even going to those meetings, and it is a little bit, people become a little bit timid of doing that because they don't want to experience that. That's not where they are in that healing process. But in saying that, there's all of these different ways to get to that point, because it might be through art, it might be through cooking, and that was kind of what Wounded Warrior Project allowed us to do, was just find all of these different ways to attack stress and what works for you. Reading, we had a special forces sniper that would paint like little figurines, like metal figurines, like for battles and stuff like that, and he would set it up, and he talked about the precision that it would take for those brush strokes and the settle down and not be shaken and not have your hands, the focus into it was exactly what he used for shooting.
Wow.
So I think that's all it really was for me that helped figure it out for people. Like, how do you translate everything we've used in the military and what they've taught us into everyday life? And how does that translate to dealing with stress? And the reason I say that is the military preps you for stress. Like, it's not a profession that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be 20 years and it's going to be good. The majority of people, at least when I joined and the people that I was around, you join because you're going to have to fight war. And you're going to have to fight at any given time. If they tell you, you're going to fight. And you're going to have to fight for your life. You're going to have to fight for somebody else. And there's movies about it. There's documentaries about it. Like, you join the military and something happens, guess what? People are going to die, or you might even have to kill somebody. You're going to have to save somebody's life. But if you join the military and a conflict happens, that is most likely going to happen.
Let me ask you this. We talked a little bit earlier about experiences that you have that most people don't. And there's a lot of people who've served, but when a person joins the military and they understand that is part of something that could happen because they've joined, at what point did you transition between this is something that could happen to this is something that's gonna happen and I need to change my mindset? Was it in basic training? Was it
I don't know. I think I think in your mind, you're always ready, or you think you're ready. Like they put you under, from day one of basic training, that's what the stress is for. That's why everybody's yelling at you. That's why you go through that, what do they call it? Oh man, I can't remember. The obstacle course when they're shooting tracer rounds over your head, and actually they have TNT, these buckets filled with TNT, and stuff is blowing up, and it's like combat.
Yeah.
You're crawling through, and if you stand up and you're crawling under barbed wire, if you stand up, your head's gonna get shot off. Well, that stress, just like in training and in lifting, we're building that. We're trying to throw that at you, or the military is trying to throw that at you, identify where you might be weak at and what they need to focus on, and just constantly put you in that stress, just like a callus, just building up that toughness for when it does happen. And I think before we go to combat, oh yeah, everybody right before we went across the wire, when we're in Saudi and we're getting ready to drive into Iraq, and you can hear the bombs going off and you can see the rockets flying across, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm ready. But when it first happens, I remember we paused, we stopped. It didn't happen the way we wanted. Not everybody fought back the way we wanted to. Not everybody,
That's
did what they're
similar to
supposed
kind of
to.
what we talked about earlier. That switch of, hey, this is happening. As opposed to, you've been training for something and now here you're in it.
And the only way that I got to that, and this is why I'm so thankful for being in combat, is I was forced in that position. But that wasn't the first time I was shot at. I joined the military because I was robbed at gunpoint here in San Antonio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 19 because I joined when I was 20. Up at West Avenue, working at a full-service gas station called Highway Oil. There's a church across the street on a Sunday night, and it was like, we're going to go to Antros and go to the club afterwards. I was cleaning my car, went to the back, and these kids came to rob me with a screwdriver and a crowbar, and I had a knife on me. So we fought for like 10 minutes running around the gas pumps. It was only 2 gas pumps. And then somebody comes, and I'm thinking, oh, it's a customer. And as I go to run inside to call the police and dialing 911, and I hear shattering the windows. Well, my little Acura Integra that I had just bought like months before, they were breaking on the windows. So I ran outside with my knife like I'm going to do something. And the person that pulled up in the car was actually their getaway. So
really?
Yeah, he yelled at the 2 guys to get in the car, and then he pointed his gun at me, and he didn't fire. I just kind of closed my eyes because I thought he was going to shoot, and then he didn't shoot. Threw my my change belt at the car. It bounced off the car. They picked it up. I was taking law enforcement classes at the time at SAC. I wanted to be a police officer. I really didn't want to join the military. My dad was a hard ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did not want to join. But that happened to me, and I was like, man, if I'm going to get shot, I'm going to get paid for it. Yeah. I'm not going to be working at a gas station. And so I joined the military. And that, I think that, not that lifestyle, but that kind of that push of adrenaline, and that life can be just taken away from you. I think you kind of get drawn to that. Sometimes it can be bad, and sometimes it's a good thing because you learn how to use it. And we were talking about turning on that switch. And
so let's go back real quick. Did that happen at that point, or was that something that happened to you later on where you had that thought process, or was it there that day where you said, life's short and it can be taken any time? Because when you're 19, you're like, what an asshole, and then you move on because you don't imagine anything's going to happen to you.
I think that's what it didn't happen for me until Iraq, until actually going, maybe until I lost my first person, until you really experience, because by that time I hadn't really gone through. This is San Antonio. We grew up here in the West Side. You go to a party and somebody gets shot. That's how high school was for us. So those things happening weren't as unheard of, until you join the military and you find out that's not normal. That's not how everybody grows up. But just being around that or seeing that or being exposed to it, it wasn't uncommon. But then being in Iraq, I mean, when you get to that point, you're like, oh, I'll do anything. You know, have people out there, oh, I'm going to kill everybody who's out there. It doesn't matter. And no, it doesn't happen like that. Yeah. You know, you don't know until you're in that fight, and you do see people stop. You know, they don't fire back. You know, they hunker down, and that's when that switch kicks on, because survival really does kick in. And when I talk about that experience, what happened in Houston, that's what happened. Yeah. You know, the military kind of ingrains that. They train you for. Then when it does happen, you're ready for it. You know, and if I didn't go through all those experiences, if I didn't get robbed at gunpoint, join the military, push me into the military, go through combat, I don't think I ever would have been ready for me getting shot and me fighting back after I got shot. Yeah. You know, but then again, that goes back to, you know, we were talking about, maybe, you know, people say, oh, Rene's tough because he did this, or Rene's tough because he's dealing with that. No, I just took the opportunity. I was given the opportunity and put through that stress. You know, if you were with me in the military and if you were going through those things that I was going through, then you know that you can deal with that stress. You know, you're not going to die when you're walking for this long and you're PTing for this long, or you haven't slept in this many days, or haven't eaten, or whatever horrible things that we experienced in the military and training, that without that, you know, I don't think I ever would have known. Without those opportunities, I don't think I ever would have known. And I think that's just it. You know, most people aren't given those type of opportunities to really test themselves or put their life to test. Everything that your parents teach you, everything that school has taught you, everything that your job has taught you, our conversations, you know, not all of us get those opportunities to test ourselves. And even though that's not one that I wanted to test myself, I didn't want to have to go through combat, or I didn't want to have to go through almost losing my wife or losing my intestine. But regardless, those things taught me, and those opportunities that I don't want to say that I took, but I went through. Sure. They put me where I am today. The reason we're having this conversation is because I went through that. You know,
is your intestine part of what happened when you'd gotten shot?
No. So, after my first, I deployed 2 times. The first time I deployed, I was a cavalry scout. So the sneaking and peeking, and I got to do the real, be on the ground and fighting, and we barely made it out. You know, we lost I want to say about half our guys in the first 3 months to either deaths or to injuries. Wow. And it was smaller platoon, which was a scout platoon. It's meant for more reconnaissance. But I kind of went through a lot of bad. I fell into a cesspool. We had to be in the Tigris River, at which I got sick from. I was in a chicken coop I got sick from. So there's all these things that I was exposed to that could have been to it. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with Crohn's, but it could have been really everything, because I never responded correctly to treatment. Mm. So when I deployed the second time, when I returned back from Iraq, I was injured, broke my ankle. It was a compound fracture. It changed my military career. So then I moved over, because of my work, the first deployment, I moved over to military intelligence. And then from there, I kind of, whatever was going on seemed to get worse. Mm. And when I came back, that was a 18-month deployment. When I came back from that one, I was like pooping blood, for 3 months.
So I'd imagine you were doing that as well while you're deployed.
No, it didn't happen until I returned. Oh. I remember now, you know, if I was to sit and talk about talking about my experiences, what I was going through Iraq. Oh, I remember now my stomach hurting and things getting really bad. But, you know, there's so much stress. You figure that's what everybody's going through, you know. But when I came home, that's when it got scary, when, you know, my hand was full of blood, and every time I went to the bathroom for 2 to 3 months. And then when I went in and finally got diagnosed, I was one of 4 guys going through the exact same symptoms.
Oh, really?
And they were like, oh, no, that's just coincidence. Now that 2 of those guys have died.
Wow.
From colon cancer.
Jeez.
So mine got to the point where we were monitoring it. Finally, I paid for my own colonoscopy here in San Antonio. I wasn't the doctor at Fort Hood kept giving me, no, it's just IBD. It's just IBD. And I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
So paid for my own colonoscopy here. We figured out what it was and we started treatment. Then started kind of getting into powerlifting. That's kind of how I dealt with my stress in Iraq. So I got into that. Competed here at Military Nationals in June 2010. And then 5 days later, my disease spread so much that went to both sides of the large intestine all the way up from the exit to where the small intestine connect.
Wow.
So to the sigmoid. So from the anus to the sigmoid, it was all ulcers.
Really?
Yeah. So they got to the point where like, hey, we're going to have to remove this. So they removed my whole large intestine.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when they did the biopsies, it was already, the cells were already changing, which ultimately, would have turned into cancer. Yeah. So I guess we kind of beat it before, but I had to deal with the bag for, a year. But it had nothing to do with my gunshot. Actually, there was a reason why I was shot. Because the disease itself is like stress induced. So every time something bad happened in my family, like when my daughter was born, I almost lost my wife. She bled out. She was in ICU for the first 2 weeks. Then that's when my disease got bad, because the previous year was when I was dealing with that with my daughter and my wife. Then got so bad, removed the intestine. So then we decided to go back. Move the intestine. My wife gets cancer. I get put out of the military. And then now we're like, all right, let's start going all over again. Let's start trying to figure out my disease, because it's really hasn't been fixed. Yeah. And it's tearing me up every single day.
It sounds like it's got to be super painful.
So most people don't know. I eat once a day. I don't snack. I try not to do, and even doing this weightlifting thing and trying to be big, I eat once a day. I eat once a day because it is painful to poop.
Oh,
Let's
really?
just put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't have a large intestine. Everything moves through me, but it's like being kicked in the wells every single time. Like I see stars to that point. So if I drink water, I got to go to the bathroom. If I eat, I got to go to the bathroom. So for me,
are you stuck to a certain diet then?
I don't anymore.
Okay.
It seems to, regardless of diets, it's painful or not working regardless. So I just...
I'm 44 now, and I don't have that experience that you went through, but I have the experience that you go through. And it's funny because I can't go anywhere. I go to graduation party last weekend, like I said, and everybody's just like, are you on a diet? And it's like, no, I'm still fat. I just got to eat at the house.
Yeah.
Because if I eat at a restaurant or if I eat out of town, it's going to be a problem.
Not that diseases are cool or anything,
no.
but it's not the one that you talk about with your friends. You know what I mean? There are times that I had to wear a Depends for a long time just because I couldn't control when they reattached everything, or I wouldn't feel it, So that tears on you too.
I got you beat, man. I shit in my wife's car twice.
Oh, I've done that too. Yeah. When my Crohn's was at its worst, there was no waiting. Yeah. There is no waiting. I had toilet paper on me at all times. I was a guy that in Killeen or in Copper's Cove when we were stationed there, I might be in your yard. Yeah. And I had to do it in the military real quick.
And I make sure I got rubber floor mats in every vehicle I buy. And I tell the guys at work, I'm like, dude, I never know when I'm gonna have to sit on a rubber floor mat to get home. So. It's funny, the older you get, and the more you experience, the more that you kind of, I guess you're a little less embarrassed. It's kind of, I tell the younger guys at work, I'm like, how old are you? And they're like, man, I'm 30, I'm 28, or whatever. And it's like, okay, you got some time, man. Come see me in 10 or 15 years.
I think the military got rid of any embarrassment thing that I had. There's pictures of me like naked because I have cactus thorns in my butt. And,
oh, really?
It all all
shame goes
out the window. You know, whether it's somebody messing with you or you messing with somebody, I think that's something you learn.
and you know, it's funny because I grew up, my siblings were that way. I mean, we hacked on each other. We did terrible things to each other. And even my friends growing up. And so as you got older, it's like, I don't sweat that. You know, I've been treated, I always used to say, I've been treated worse by the people who love me. So
that's true.
But I want to talk a little bit about y'all's experience in Houston, man. So your wife had gotten cancer.
So it's 2015. I officially retired in June 2015. After 17 and a half years. My wife had been like 2 years cancer-free. She had something called gestational trophoblastic disease that was caused from leftover placenta from the birth.
Okay.
So like I was saying earlier, one of the things that we never got fixed was just being able to control my disease. It's like if I always have a flare-up. And you know, the biologics that they put you on, or the small like forms of chemo that they put you on, you know, everything was hard on the body. So I tended to be like, I don't know if I want to take that, because it interfered with me lifting, or it was going to hold me back. And to me, that is my therapy. And I'll go into that as well. So I'm trying to get myself fixed, trying to get everything done right. And MD Anderson, Baylor College of Medicine in Houston is who diagnosed me fully for the military, and then was going to start trying all types of new therapies. You know, of course, they have a lot more, I guess, freedom than the military does on types of treatments.
This is before you had the large intestine removed, right?
No, I already had it. Okay. I already had it removed. I had my large intestine removed June 2010.
Okay, and
this is 5 years later. So I went from 242 in June 2010 to about 160.
Wow.
And I worked my way back up. I was literally 2015 was Tim's first competition. And by him being there, he pushed me to my best competition. So I was at the top of my game. My goals were to open up a gym for adaptive athletes. One of the things that I was trying to do was use myself as that adaptive athlete that's pushing through this. So that was it. I was trying to go all out. I was trying to make the USAPL US team. Like, I was on a roll.
Yeah.
And we were going back to Baylor College of Medicine to start all the treatment all over again. And I'm a concealed carrier. You know, earlier in the day we had been shopping or whatever, and bought a couple of things, I'll go back. We had been shopping, looking for a place to stay in Houston. My wife doesn't like driving through Houston. So one of the hotels we pulled up to, looked kind of shady in downtown Houston. She was like, no, I don't like this one. Let's go to another one. So I called up and see if the other place had, many rooms available. And it was, well, I won't say it.
Yeah.
It was another place, nearby. If we can edit that out.
Yeah.
Another place nearby. And, so we went to that place, checked into it online. Then I walked inside, paid for the room, came back inside. Or excuse me, before I walked in, I cleared my pistol, because normally I clear my pistol, in my car versus in the hotel. A lot of my guns don't have safety. So, you know, just in case.
So you do like a duty carry kind of?
No, I just, well, yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was big. I was like 240.
Well, I remember you being real muscular. Yeah.
I was, I hate to say it like that because I make myself mad. I was like at my prime. And, you know, parked my car. And like I said, I cleared my pistol right before I went inside to pay, put it back on my hip, parked my car. And we parked at the time, or recently before this had happened, while I was in the military. One of the last things I had an opportunity to do in the military was work for the FBI here in FBI headquarters.
Oh, okay.
I worked counterterrorism for about 14, 15 months.
Oh, wow.
And so the paranoia of everything going on, like I park by cameras, I park by lights, I carry because I can, I'm licensed, I train. So I took all of those precautions. I pay attention to all those things, and we're just parked in the spot near the door, near the cameras, near an actual light. The Texas high school football championship games were going on. So this is December 17th, 2015. The Texas high school championships are going on there at the stadium, and people are walking back and forth, and no big deal. I see a kid walking back, and he's got a kind of an angry look, young black kid. He's all dressed in red, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he's from the losing team or whatever. Kid walks by me, and then of course I'm just paying attention through him, and our vehicle is a black vehicle with tinted windows. A vehicle parked next to me is like a darker vehicle with tinted windows, but I can see him walking, and then the moment I see him kind of look side to side, like if he's checking who's in the parking lot, spidey senses kick off, and I'm like, damn it. And my wife we have a Honda Pilot. My wife is at the back of the SUV, kind of hiding our bags from what we bought, because we did some shopping for Christmas in Houston. So she's kind of hiding those bags. I'm grabbing my night bag, and I had been MPO the whole day, so no eating, no drinking, anything, because I'm having surgery in the morning. Okay, I forgot to mention that. We went to Houston because I was supposed to have a colonoscopy. They were looking for cancer, and they wanted to just rule it out. Mm-hmm. So I was having a procedure that morning or the next morning, and we were going in the evening, so we could get there and not have to deal with traffic. So I'm grabbing my bag and with a little bit of stuff, my medication, and then I see this guy walking back towards my wife. I'm like, damn it. Uncover my gun on my side, and I kind of take a stance so I can draw if I have to draw. And as soon as the guy comes in between the vehicle next to me and my vehicle, and I see him like focused on my wife now.
You're on opposite sides, right?
I am on the driver's passenger side, back passenger side. Mm-hmm. And my wife is in the back of the vehicle.
Okay.
So, literally from like how me or you are sitting, 4 or 5 feet from each other, maybe less than that. So he's making a beeline to my wife. And when he steps in between the two vehicles, I'm like, hey, can I help you with something? But in that time, he's already drawing his gun. So I drew my pistol. I pointed at him, squeezed the trigger. I took out the round. So click.
Yeah.
So I kind of take a position, hunker down and make myself small, going back to charge my gun, and he opens up on me. And it was automatic. Boom, 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 boom. And it was a Mac 11. It was either an automatic Glock or a Mac 11. It was square and it had an extended mag. So because I have my hands extended as I'm charging back, it blows off part of my thumb, splits open my forearm, and then the bullet blows out my elbow and is kind of sticking out my elbow. And it was a .45. So when you see those movies and people are getting blown back, I felt that. I felt my arm blast behind me, and then I could feel the other rounds kind of just flying by like pow, pow, pow. And I felt the other one hit me in the thigh, and it almost took my legs out from underneath me. It knocked me up against the opened back door, and then he stayed on top of me. Boom, 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 boom. And then, as we were talking about...
How many times did it hit you total?
2. He fired all 30 rounds at me.
Oh, man.
30 rounds.
Thank God he never goes to the shooting range.
I think he was young. He was skinny. Yeah. He couldn't hold it.
45's a big gun.
Oh, yeah, I know. And
he shot 30 rounds? 30
rounds. Jeez. So in my head, I'm like, I know I'm getting hit. I can hear my wife screaming. There's all, it's just crazy how everything, like the movies, everything slows down. Like you're paying attention what's behind you. You're paying attention who else is around you. It's just like I wish I had the video of me going through the situation so I would know if I reacted, like if it played out the exact same way in my mind.
Yeah.
So because I hear my wife screaming.
What distance is he at from you?
From me to you.
Really? So like 3 feet, 4 feet?
Yeah. This is it. And I feel the blast of the gun. It's that, the concussion of the gun. It's the, like I can almost feel the rounds, like, flying by your head and just hitting the glass and hitting the door behind you. And I was like, fucking, I'm going to die. So I'm taking this guy out with me. That's when combat came in. When it was literally like I had stepped back into Iraq. I charged my pistol on my leg. Boom, boom. Shot him in the shoulder. I got up to chase him. I was like, boom, boom. But I didn't have a leg to step on. So when I shot him, he turned and he started running. And now he's just firing blindly backwards. He's just boom, 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 boom. And now rounds are just flying everywhere. And I don't want to say I got that hunger, but I was like, I got you. Like, now you're mine. I'm going to control the system. And I go to take that step and I didn't have a leg to step on. And later on, my wife tells me the story. She thought I did a combat roll to like jump away from bullets. And no, I rolled forward, knocked myself unconscious on my face, and I rolled and my gun fell out of my hand. And I was lying there. I remember coming to, and I see him running to a white SUV, and then I fired my last 2 rounds. Boom, boom. And then I only had 6 rounds. And I passed out, and then came to, passed out. And by this time, I heard the car take off. So I'm like, I hear my wife crying, and she's in the distance. And I'm like, hey, I need your help now. I need you to come inside. I know I'm bleeding out. I just can feel, don't know if it's my artery, but I just feel just being drained. And I was wearing black shorts, a black hoodie, and it was, dark in that area that we were at. So nobody could see the extent of the bullet injury. Yeah. They saw blood, but the way that the bullet hole hit, it went into my thigh, severed my femoral, and got stuck in my inner thigh. Oh, wow. So it hit the outside. Here, I'll stand up. All right, just because I need to stand up and move around. No problem. But I was hit in the thigh. It traveled, severed the femoral artery, and then got stuck in the medial part of my thigh. Almost going towards my elbows. And you looked at the path. Thank God I was powerlifting at the time, because the doctor even said that. He's like, man, I've never worked on some legs as big as yours. That constriction actually helped me out, is what he said. And that's what I had heard. I think Andre had mentioned it to us, and at the time you were thick, and so I wonder if that was something that contributed to you. I believe so. I'm not a medical personnel, and then there's some people that I've always asked that, because a muscle's a muscle, right? It's going to constrict. And I've just always attributed that as a way of why it wasn't worse. Yeah. Whether the muscle mass was thick enough that, would help slow down a bullet, whatever it was. I've always felt that has been one of the main reasons why I was able to recover faster, why it was, I didn't get hurt as bad. Because that is pretty crazy, I was shot multiple times. Yeah. 8 months after that, or that day I had surgery. It took 3 surgeries to save my leg. I remember them waking me up and like, all right, this is it. If we don't get this, we're going to take your leg. And I was like, you better save my leg. That would have been up high too, right? Yeah, it's what they would call above knee. So it would have been about where the artery, where the leg would have lost blood flow to, they would have took it about mid-thigh. Oh, okay. So a lot harder. I wouldn't have been able to have that joint for the knee. But then again, I was in the hospital with a lot of veterans that were amputees and above the knee amputees. So it was, I want to say, nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I was like, all right, okay, this is it. If I lose my leg, I lose my leg. Were they able to catch the guy? So, because if he was hitting the shoulder, somebody's got to. 11. There was 11 people shot in the hospital that I was in. It was from that event. No. Okay. Just from Houston. I got you. So, I think 9 or a large number of those other guys that were shot as well, and pretty much everybody had knew where they got shot or whatever, but it could have been anybody, That's crazy that you're in a hospital and there's 11 other dudes that were shot. And do you know how everybody treated it? And it was so unacceptable to me. It was like, oh, this is Houston. This is just it. Like, I didn't come out in the blotter. Not even did any of those other 11 other shootings. It was such a common theme that they were okay with it. Like, that's crazy that
they don't even bother trying to make an arrest out of other people that are there because there's so many that it's almost like they're telling you it's not worth investigating.
So no cameras, any of the buildings. I because of kind of the work that I did before, I kind of knew what to look for. I knew where I could ask and all this stuff. So I had that fresh in my mind. I started reaching out to all of the.
So you did some legwork?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everybody told me, I'm sorry, our cameras don't work. Everybody.
I wonder if part of that is them just not wanting to get involved.
I have heard that before because then it becomes a liability, but I don't think that was the case for this one or in the surrounding area. I think it just comes down to somebody just didn't get their cameras fixed. And that makes you mad because this happened after a retirement. The way that I felt was, and why it kind of hurt my feelings or just made me so mad to go through that situation. And I don't mean just getting shot. I mean not being able to follow through with the investigation of having the evidence and having people go and do what you would see on TV, right?
Yeah.
Like 48 hours or whatever. But I guess because I didn't die, there wasn't as much of a push.
Yeah.
These are shootings that happen in here in Houston. So, 30 rounds, but I know probably
it's a lot of rounds, man.
He's probably wore gloves or he probably cleaned cleaned the rounds before he went, because whoever stayed and shot me was not a punk.
Yeah.
Whoever shot me stayed to kill me. So that's the biggest difference. Whoever did that or the guy that did that, I know, or would most likely have protected himself from fingerprints, the gun not being theirs. It's a stolen gun. So by that point, I would think, all right, this is a hardened criminal. You're probably not going to catch him.
Yep.
Unless they do have the vehicle, but how are they really going to ask for that? Or, and I might be the last of, if there's 11 other people got shot, then that tells you what the caseload is.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that there's only so many.
And there's probably multiple hospitals with another 10 in each, probably.
And Herman Memorial, that's where I was at during that day. That was the number one hospital for gunshots. So that was the place to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he didn't get caught. Nothing. I didn't hear anything back. I actually had a hard time getting in contact with the detective. I had one detective come in before the actual detective came in. He's like, hey, I just went, I know you're in the military. I know your wife told me that who you used to work for, or what you did before. And I was like, man, I'm nobody. Like, I'm not in the military anymore. And the organization that I worked for before, I'm not in there anymore. I'm nobody. I'm just a retiree guy. Like, I don't care. Run your investigation. And I guess I was like his first robbery homicide case, and it was didn't seem right.
Yeah.
How he asked the questions, very timid. I was like, in the back of my mind, like, this ain't gonna get solved. And it sucked because I never heard from him. There was an incident in the hospital where my wife and my sister were. I was going through surgery, and they were trying to identify, hey, look, these guys are dressed the exact same way as the people that shot my husband. And then when they heard my wife telling their story, they were kind of focused on my wife. So when my wife tried to point that out to the detective went to the wrong group of people, and it was a couple of black families. So it was, of course, a black guy that shot me. And so the guys that were there was a couple of younger black families and group of kids that were there for their guys or supporting their friend or whatever. So the police officer approached the wrong family. And then that turned into everybody, you're all racist and you don't know what you're doing. And then that was it. I never heard from him again. I guess he thought, these people don't know what they're talking about. They're just saying that a black guy shot him and he's over there. He just went to the wrong person.
Yeah. It's a mess, man.
And it was everything that could go wrong went wrong. Mm-hmm. It was raining that year. I don't think they collected everything right away, and like blood. Like if I shot the guy, then at least you had some blood.
Sure.
Or collected some blood, and then we have some type of record, that would be on file or whatever. It rained. A guy told me they didn't go back until afterwards, after the rain. That's when Houston was flooding. So it was like literally everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong. Best case scenario for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you getting his attention right away, pulling his attention away from your wife, was huge. And then being able to and being armed, being able to defend yourselves, because had you not have anything, who knows? He may have taken the opportunity to shoot both of you. So I mean, when you're telling me the story and I'm listening to it, there's times in the story where I'm thinking, man, that's a blessing. Man, that's a blessing. I typically, this is a terrible thing for me to say, but I typically don't carry with one in the chamber. But I watch a lot of videos. I try and educate myself, and everything says you need to carry one in the chamber because things happen that fast. I'm sure had you thought about it, had you been the type of person that doesn't carry one in the chamber, your first reaction would have been to put one in.
Right.
But since you typically do, that wasn't your first reaction. But things happen so quick, man. And, it's a blessing that the guy was a terrible fucking shot.
Yeah.
And, it's a blessing that your wife was safe. At what point did you, because I would imagine there would be some point where you had some relief, maybe when he jumped in the car and drove off, to where you said, my wife's safe at least. Or were you in
I was
recovery mode?
I was in combat mode.
You're in combat
I started treating myself. It kind of felt like I was in combat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I say what I was trying to mention, where sometimes people can misunderstand of what we go through and why it becomes sometimes hard to talk about situations that you go through in combat. Because the moment that I was laying on the ground, I was relieved. I was relieved to be back in that situation. I was relieved to finally be able to use all of those skill sets, everything that I was taught in the military, because that's where I spent a large time of my life doing. And they teach you to fight, and I don't get to do that outside of combat. So it's this crazy kind of feeling that while I was sitting there, I was like, oh, yes, I finally went through it again. Now I could get it off my chest, But I kicked right back into combat. I was trying to pull my drawstring off of my sweatshirt. I just didn't have the strength to. I wanted to do a tourniquet, and the first person that came out to me was this young kid, had been like 18, 19-year-old, probably playing at the football game. And I was telling him, hey, can I get your belt? I think I'm bleeding out. I need to put a tourniquet on. And he was like, well, and he didn't have a belt. He was like in shorts. He's like, no, sir. I can hear the ambulance. Just wait it out. And I was like, hey, I know I just need somebody to record me. I'm going to give you the description of the person. I'm going to tell you everything. In case I die, I need you to record me. And I'm thinking, somebody's recording this. Like, somebody's got to be with the phone. Everything gets recorded. And it was these older ladies, and I know they were ladies because then I heard them cry. And then when I said I was going to die, I'm thinking about, in case I die, they're like, oh my God. So then they're crying, and in my head, I'm like, God dang it, man, I'm going to die here and nobody's going to know. So they load me on the table. They put me on the gurney. This makes things even worse. I didn't think I was going to make it through this night. They load me in the ambulance, and I don't get strapped into the gurney. And everybody's got to be like 130, 140 pounds. And at that time, I was a good 240. And I don't remember hearing it, but my wife was telling me that the police officer trying to get as much information, and the ambulance guy were arguing because he knew we had to go, and the police officer was trying to get as much information. So the guy that's trying to do my IVs, he's having a hard time sticking me because MPO. I was dehydrated. I hadn't eaten anything. And the one, because you lose the lack of intestine, my veins have, I'm always dehydrated. Okay. So my veins are normally small. Yeah. Just my lack of water absorption. And then being more dehydrated because I didn't drink any, that made it worse. So he's kind of getting nervous now because vitals are getting lower, and I'm now adrenaline is wearing off, and I'm in pain, and I'm like, I need some fucking drugs. Like it's wearing off. Jeez. And I was like, oh, this getting shot wasn't too bad. No. Once the adrenaline wore off, yeah, I started the pain started setting in, and so the guy's like whistling to himself to get an IV, and then the girl that's on the other side trying to work on me, she's arguing with him like, why are you whistling? Like, not now. And they're having this argument.
He's trying to focus.
Yeah, he's trying to get himself, and they can't get it. So finally they stuck an IO into my arm and pumped me full of whatever, and it didn't work. And they're like, I'm sorry, sir, we can't give you anymore. And unfortunately, all the years of having those surgeries, being on pain meds, every nerve blocker that I was on at the time, it was just, when I needed it to work the most, it didn't work because of all the medications that I had been taking prior. Mm-hmm. And that's actually why I stopped taking all those medications, because that was my eye opener. Like, man, I needed this to work, and it didn't work for me. Like, well, when will this happen again? Yeah. So I got into the hospital. I mean, they're arguing. They're trying to work on me. Ambulance takes off, and it kind of abruptly takes off. So then the board that I was on, that was on the gurney, slips off, and then I fall kind of on the guy's lap. Oh. So I'm sideways, sitting in this guy's lap, and the girl's trying to pull me back onto the gurney, and it is just...
I'd imagine it'd be somewhat slippery because of all the blood that you're losing.
It was just a mess.
Were they able to get a tourniquet on you right away?
Yeah, okay. They were. But I don't know if they I don't know at the time that they thought, oh, okay, he's bleeding out. Only because all you saw was the bullet hole. Mm-hmm. All the blood was pooling in my leg, not just seeping out. Only a little bit was seeping out. So it didn't look as traumatic, I guess. And then I deal with stress, as do most veterans, with comedy. So I'm just talking trash, trying to keep myself calm, and them as well. Just like that. That's just how we are. I guarantee you, if you were in that situation, that you'd use comedy. It's just who we are, you know. And I think too, that kind of gave them well, he's still good. He's still talking. Maybe it's not as bad. And then went into the emergency room, and they're sticking their finger in bullet holes, and I'm screaming, and I don't remember anything else.
Jeez. So I guess at some point they put you maybe in a drug-induced coma, right?
I'm out for a while. I think it was like 8, 10, 12 hours for my leg. I'm in there for a long time because of the amount of surgeries, and the artery was obliterated. So, like a rubber band, it's stretched or retracted all the way back into my leg.
So they've got to go and grab that guy, pull him back down, and reattach?
I have a scar from like the top of my navel all the way down to the bottom of my knee. So they split the whole thigh open. So they're trying as much as possible to reconnect the artery, and they took a vein from my other leg. That failed. I don't remember what the first surgery they tried to do, but then ultimately they put a graft, a piece of plastic to hold it together. Fine, everything works. They split my leg open, the fasciotomy. I don't know if you've ever seen that, when my leg was kind of split like a banana.
Yes.
So they split it open to relieve the pressure, because now there was no blood flow to the leg, and now you have this rush of blood flow. So they have to they have to relieve that pressure. So what is it called? Not carpal tunnel. Oh man, I forgot all the medical terms for my leg. Well, anyway, so the leg doesn't start losing the muscle from the inflammation.
Oh, gotcha. So I guess all your little I guess all your little veins and everything in your lower half of your leg are starting to collapse because they're not receiving blood, and then so they make that reconnection. It's taking a little while. It's not like I don't know. It's not like a balloon that you can just blow up real quick. These things have to absorb that blood, I guess.
Oh yeah, because they will pop. Or that stress of the pressure. With all that blood flowing through, that just all that pressure ends up killing. I can't remember the medical term. I'll think of it. It ends up killing off all the muscle.
So how many surgeries did you have on your leg and how many on your arm?
So they didn't know my arm was actually shot.
Really?
They just, yeah.
You had a hoodie on, right?
Yeah. So they just bandaged my arm up. So I kept complaining, I'm like, my arm is jacked up. And every time I moved it, you would just hear, and just hear all the bones moving. And I'm like, my arm is messed up. They're like, no, sir, we did the x-ray. Well, they only did the x-ray to my forearm where it was split open, where that scar is at. Mm-hmm. Then finally, after I came out of the second surgery and I'm still complaining about it, they brought an x-ray machine and they're like, oh yeah, there's the bullet. So they went and fixed the elbow. Then I think we did a second surgery. Man, I've lost track of those days in between, but from December 18-ish to December 28th. Oh no, 24th. From the 18th to the 24th, I was in Houston. I was like, I want to be home for Christmas. So they allowed me to go home, and I was going to start doing my treatment from San Antonio. Came home for Christmas, did Christmas here, and then on New Year's, on the 30th, I got a blood clot. Got a blood clot, went back into the hospital, and was in the hospital with a blood clot for New Year's. Recovered in February, and then probably from then on, every 8 months, I had a blood clot. Mm-hmm. When I came out of surgery, they told me, you never squat again, you'll never bench again. That's it. Your heavy lifting days are over. And I was like, all right, challenge accepted. 8 months after I was shot, here in San Antonio, they had the bench press and deadlift for USPA for Worlds. I won second.
Wow, that's awesome.
8 months after I was shot, I won second at that competition. It was that drive of, oh, you'll never bench again? All right, guy. I'll show you that. But ever since then, every 8 months, that's all it was. The leg would clot up, and you'd see those pictures of me. I'd work out for a while. I'd be there and I'd be right back in the hospital.
Yeah. And I remember seeing one. I guess you were, you'd been training, and then I guess you'd gotten a blood clot, and they had to cut your leg or something.
Yeah, yeah. So every single time that I went in for a blood clot, they split my leg open. They do a thrombolectomy, so almost like a rotor into my arteries from one side of the groin and go all the way into the artery on the other side. Jeez. So you can't move for 24 hours. It's the worst thing that I dread having blood clots, not just because of the surgeries, but because I won't be able to move. Yeah. Like if you move, you can puncture your artery in your waist, so you can't even bend. Jeez. And I was like, well, just knock me out. I'll sleep forever. You know? So every 8 months from 2016 to 2019, I had a blood clot, and they opened up my leg. It was like over 32 procedures that I had. And now, it's been opened up so many times and got the nerve damage from it, or I think now it's starting to see the permanent, after effects, what my leg really is going to be or what it's not going to be anymore. Yeah. But I mean, after the last blood clot, when they were going to hey, all right, this is it. We're going to take your leg. Another doctor came through and was like, all right, we'll try to bypass it first on your vein. There's an arterial vein that runs parallel to the artery down the leg. So they bypassed it there.
This was in 2019?
Yeah, in 2019. That was my last bad one. Mm-hmm. So that one I bled out. I was pretty much dying at that time. Jeez. And just by chance, I was having emergency surgery that morning, and I had been bleeding out all night long. That as the doctor and the team is walking in, I go into a seizure because it's so much blood loss.
Wow.
And at that, right before that happened, my nurse, she was so upset with the young doctor that was there. She would ran to go get the general, but the other doctors were already coming in at that time. And I had bled out, it was twice. I think it was almost to the third, go love military hospitals, right?
Yeah.
Training hospitals, great sometimes, but then you have somebody that doesn't jump on the gun, like a new doctor like that. The military in me came out. I was like, I'm sorry, if you don't freaking outrank this colonel, then I don't want you in my bed.
Well, I mean, it's you're in a life and death situation.
Oh, it literally was.
Yeah.
I was bleeding. They changed my bed sheets like 4 times, completely saturated in blood. We only have so much blood.
Yeah.
When would a guy that's been to school realize, hey, this will probably accumulate to a lot of blood loss.
Yeah. And so that was your last. So up to this point now, I know when they had the last competition, I think you were doing bench there, right, at the last heavy middle?
At the Rob Hall Classic, I did just a push-pull. So just bench and deadlift.
Okay.
For the last couple, I've been trying to get back into this, kind of going back to why do all of this? So the powerlifting to me was my resume. And I needed I felt like I didn't want to go back to school. I didn't want to have to go back and get a degree that I really didn't feel like getting. So I wanted to use my resume as my competitions, the lead by example, or the hey, if I can do this, then you can do this type of concept. So I just was always trying to push myself. And after 2019, I just couldn't squat anymore. Yeah. Like every time I tried to, and now I think I understand why, that the bypass doesn't allow blood flow to come back as much, so I've always feel like passing out now when that weight gets really heavy, or it's just different. Yeah. For some reason, after 2019 surgery, it's just different now. So I wasn't able to squat to depth and to any of the federation standards, so I just wasn't doing it anymore. I was training it, but wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things. Like I had told people, like 2 months ago, like I'm done squatting. Like I don't think I'm going to be able to do it anymore. Like I'm just going to quit for a couple of years and be a bench only guy. I started coaching para benching as well. So para athletes,
really?
Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm gonna be like, because I compete adaptive as well. I was like, I'll just be a bench only. I don't need a squat. I don't need to be tearing up my body.
Yeah. That
lasted for like 3 weeks, and then I signed up for a competition. It is. I don't know. I have to show you, and it's just one of those things that I have to show you that you're not gonna die. It does suck. It is painful, but man, if I'm this old broken guy, beat up guy that can do it, then I just took that opportunity to do it. That's it.
Well, I think, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think there's a lot that people see that you've endured, and a lot of times they chalk it up to that you're just not a regular person, and in talking to you earlier, hearing that you still have, concerns and you still have issues with things, and you just deal with them and you keep moving because that's your only option. I think that carries a lot of weight, and I think a lot of people see that and are inspired by it, because they hear your story, they hear the things you've been through, and then you're a quiet guy. You're not all over social media. You're not putting things out there all the time. And that was one thing that I was concerned about, trying to get you on the podcast was, I'm like, man, I don't Renee's, when you talk to you, when people talk to you, it's like, oh man, Renee's an open book, but you're not the type of person to put your business out there. You lead by example, so it's nice when people can see somebody like that. I think we have there's a lot of people that post just crap, and so a lot of times, like you say, you see it, people are full of shit, or you see it and you go, I can't achieve that. But, when you're doing it and people are in the gym watching you do it, or people are talking about you doing it, and it's kind of like, it's inspiring, man. It really is. And I think that's something outside of the things that you've endured and the things that you'll continue to endure, you know, is people are watching, you know, and like you said earlier, you know, not giving up because you don't want people to go, well, fuck, well, Rene gave up, I'm going to give up, you know, and that's a lot of weight to carry for you. But at the same time, it's true, you know, because people are looking at you doing things because you're doing it, you know, and so that's massive, man. That carries so much weight.
But you know, the way that I see it is the complete opposite. I run into people on a daily basis that are exactly like me. Now, one of the things that I notice is nobody gives themselves credit. Nobody. You know, nobody like this right now, Gabe. You have a podcast. One, that is one of the to put yourself out there, even when we have conversations, to go just do that. That takes a lot of bravery, because you know you're going to put yourself out there. You know you're going to take some criticism. And kind of what I did was just, I wanted to be the person that talks to you. And then when I started talking to people, that's when I realized, like, everybody's like me. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that go out and talk to people, or that are going out to kind of show it. But we kind of stay away from the limelight. You know what I mean? You're not doing it for the reason of the likes. You're just doing it for the reason of helping somebody, you know? And I think that there is a lot more people that kind of do what I do. They just go unnoticed because they're not trying to be noticed. You know, they're just trying to help the next person out. And when people are like, oh man, that's so awesome that you do that, I find it saddening that people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to help out the next person. If I got to a certain point in my life, then why would I not want to help somebody else get to that? Even if it's one person.
Yeah.
You know, just why should I be feeling good that I got to this point?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't help out the next person. And one thing that I guess that you learn in the military, and it's part of our Army values, is that selfless sacrifice. It doesn't stop, you know, from the Bible, from, you know, to literally all of every military's values. You know, selfless sacrifice is that, you know, or when you take any type of oath, you know, you're swearing to protect somebody or something, you know, from doctors to first responders, you know, that just doing that, you know, just taking that step, that just goes to show you that there's plenty of people that do what I do. There's plenty of people that take that opportunity, but everybody can. They don't ever see themselves that way. They don't ever see themselves of being able to accomplish that. And that's kind of where I am at in my life, is I want to be that spark. I can't do anything over it. If you like my video, I don't know if you're just liking it because you're my friend and that's it. If I want to have an impact, then I have to have that conversation. You know, when we're sitting here and I'm telling you that stories, whether it's getting shot or whether it's dealing with any of that, you can see that, you know, I feel like you could see that, or whoever we talk to, we can sense that from them, that it's genuine. It's not just something that's posted out there. You know that I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing because I'm telling you what it feels like. I'm telling you how to get through that. To me, that is more important. The human connection, with people. I think social media is great. I follow a lot of motivational things, and I use that in my conversations with people. But if I'm really going to start a flame with somebody, I have to go speak to you. I have to go feel you, and that's where the conversation is going to change.
Yeah. Because
if I feel I'm losing you, or if I feel like you don't get in enough, then I'm going to help try to fix that. And I know sometimes, even my wife, we have these arguments. She's like, I don't tell you because I want you to fix it. I don't know what it is. You know, if you tell me you have a problem, I want to fix it. Whether you want my help or not, you know, I might even do it without even knowing. Like, hey, I'm having trouble with my car. I need a mechanic. Man, sometimes I'll be like, oh, who do I know that's a mechanic?
Yeah.
You know, let me look for somebody. But I feel like we're all supposed to do that.
We should.
You know, why do I know all of these good mechanics, or why do I know good coaches, or why do I know good gyms to go to? Why would I not share that information? And I just feel like that's the point of my life that I'm in. Like every conversation I have with the person has to be impactful. You know, has to be impactful. Has to be something they remember, or something when you make somebody feel that way, that it could change them. I've had people say that, like, oh man, I didn't think I was going to make it today. I was ready to pull the trigger. I was ready to do it. And you stop it by just having a conversation. That changed my life forever. You know, to know how powerful words are, you know, to know how powerful these conversations that we have, that we forgot to do. You know, we post stuff and we communicate online all the time, but I realized how impactful you can be just by going out to talk to somebody.
Yeah. Just
going to share your story, bad or good, you know. And I think the people that if you were to run into somebody who's like, oh yeah, I don't know Rene. Oh, did you know this happened? I share that. So like you said earlier, so you know you're not the only person that life sucks. So you know that you're not the only person that when we talk about death or getting over something, that it's not good. It's not easy. It's not over. Now PTSD isn't going to go away. All of these injuries that we talk about and deal with, they're never going to go away. They're just only going to exacerbate as we get older. So why don't we start telling that truth? Is we have to make ourselves stronger mentally, physically, to prep for these bigger stresses. Because you know what, I would love to say that the worst is behind me now, but you know,
there might be a new worse.
There might be a new worse.
Yeah.
And we just have to continue just prepping. You know, I lift weights. I don't think I shouldn't say that. My goal is to become number one in whatever it is now. I don't care if it's adaptive. I don't care if it's in the masters. I just have to reach that goal for me.
Yeah.
So in saying that, it's always a prep for that. But if I didn't have that, I don't know. I think I would still just want to be the strongest that I could be, or still just want to push some limit. So now, to me, I see that putting that type of stress on yourself is important.
Yeah.
So I talk to people for that. You know,
I think we have a, you know, I think we put a lot of emphasis in our lives in comfort and wanting to be comfortable. And you know, when I was working out with Tim would always say, "Stay uncomfortable," you know, and I think that we get away from that. You know, we don't want to be uncomfortable, and there's growth in that. There's growth in being uncomfortable, and I'm guilty of it. Shit, I'm probably one of the worst ones. You know, I hate being uncomfortable, but at the same time, you can grow in that. You know, and then going back to what you talked about with having conversations with people, you know, that's what we're lacking. I think it is having a conversation. People are so easy to post something really quick. You know, I think attention spans have gotten a lot shorter because we don't have those conversations. But when you have conversations about things, you know, of course, people are getting a lot more information, and they're able to be able to digest a little bit more what you're feeding them. You know, when you can have a conversation as opposed to just a quick post and things of that nature. You know, I've done a couple of podcasts with some people in the past that, when I was first starting, and I was amazed at what they would share, and them being able to share some things that, to me, I'm sitting there listening to the conversation thinking, why would you tell me this? You know, and the more I'm exposed to that, the more I understand that there's no fear for them in being honest and open. You know, they're not afraid of. You can't judge them because they've already judged themselves, you know, and they've endured and they've gotten through it, and there's freedom in that, you know. And so we talked about, you know, me and Nina maybe doing one in the future. You know, that's something we haven't done yet because I don't feel like it scares me to be that open. You know, we talked earlier about some of that stuff, and it's like, you know, I'm telling you, and I'm getting watery-eyed about it. And it's like, I think when we can have conversations with each other, and it doesn't have to be over a friggin' podcast, it can be over lunch, but when you can expose yourself to somebody, it's freeing to you, but it's also liberating to that person, because they're seeing that and they're thinking to themselves, man, this person opened themselves up to me. I can do that, and it's beneficial to others when you can have that conversation and share stories with them, but it's also beneficial to you, because the more you tell that story, the stronger it makes you, even if it was a story about a time you were weak, it makes you stronger. And that's one thing that, having a conversation with you, watching you, hearing about you from other people, it's like, it makes strong people like you make other people stronger. And like you said earlier, there's times where it's inside of us all. There's times where it's in us and we're just not giving ourselves enough credit for the things that we're doing. But when we can see somebody and we can hear somebody like you talk about it, it makes you reflect on what you're doing. And it either goes, man, maybe I am doing some good. Or it tells you, hey, I'm not doing shit. I need to pull my head out of my ass, because I'm not pushing myself. I'm not making myself uncomfortable. And in that, you're not living,
As a kid, when we're growing up, everybody tells us we can be the president, we can be an astronaut, we can be whatever we want as long as we work hard and put our mind to it. What happens as an adult? What happens when you're done with school? What happens when you're in your job? Nobody as adult, we don't often motivate each other as friends. Like, hey, go forget this job. Go do what you want to do. You want to be a musician? We've been working all these years. Go chase that dream now. We don't tell each other as adults to chase our dreams. I have a buddy that same thing. He wants to start a podcast, and he's a veteran that has been through a lot, and kind of the same thing. If I went into his story, you couldn't even
tell him to call me, man.
I will. I will. No, I will, because he's one of those stories, and there's somebody who I associate with, because again, has dealt with so much. His son committed suicide on his 16th birthday. His mom committed suicide the year after that. He was wounded in Iraq. There's just all of these things to where everything looks like it can be falling apart, and like, this is it. Like, dealing with him and having that conversation and talking with him just reassures me that I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that's dealing with this. I'm not the only one that's struggling with this, and going in and sharing these stories with each other, and just what's wrong with that. You said earlier, like, oh, my eyes are watering. Man, we don't have to be machismo at this point. Like you said, I'm 43 too.
Yeah.
I turn 43 in a couple weeks. If you're worried about,
neither one of us look like we're in the mid-40s, man.
I'll tell you a funny joke. Tim, you can ask him about that. But I was called 63 at one time, like a specific age, and I was 35 at the time. This is combat grade. Well, it's just I think we that connection, the talking, the sharing, the stories, that just reassures us that we are literally all in this together. There is no separation as much as we think there is. Left, right, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, whatever it is, white, black. We kind of put these categories on ourselves, and you don't realize that those are just things that we've created. That's the one thing I loved about the military. You learn that everybody bleeds the same.
Yeah.
Everybody you're in your combat with, that there is no, hey, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? What's your religion? What's your blood type? Because I don't want to associate, or I don't want to save your life. Like, that goes all out the window.
Yeah.
And so that mentality of one unit, why wouldn't I want that here?
Yeah.
It's just, all it is what the military did was identify some weaknesses. How are we going to fix it? Because that has to be a well-oiled machine if we want to survive in combat. Well, that same concept works here too. We're all different. We all have whatever. But if we're not kind of explaining that to each other, we're not explaining that we are dealing with the same thing. I have the same money problems that you do. I have the same health problems and family problems as you do. You know, we all think that we're going through this alone, and that we have to reinvent the wheel when it comes up to be our turn to deal with this stuff. And all we have to do is have these conversations, and guess what? Somebody might help you through it.
Yeah.
Somebody might just went through this, you know, and they'll be able to help you through that. But we'll never know without having that conversation. Yeah. We'll never know without wanting to be or the impact on somebody's life. My daughter says that all the time. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know. I didn't either. Yeah. The military made me do that. You know, when I got into military intelligence, you have to get briefings. I didn't know. I wasn't a computer guy. I considered myself like a caveman. Type with my knuckles. Yeah. You know. But then having to talk to people, having to be in front of people and explain things like, hey, we're going after somebody. We have to take this person's life, or recommend we do this, or recommend that takes a lot. So that kind of threw me in the mix of talking to people. But then I realized how important it was to talk to people, the information that you got from people, the atmospherics of really what's going on around you until you talk to people. And all of this comes down to that, you know, we're at the point in my life wanting to do things for people, wanting to push myself. It's all because you said that, you know, if you say, oh, I watched Rene in the gym. Now, to me, that's more important that I have to push it. That's more important to me now to know, like, I can't give up, even more so now, or I can't stop, or I can't whatever. And that's not a bad thing to me. You know, that's a stress that I like.
Yeah.
And now where we're at, now that I've seen that I can't control every stress. I can't control my money. I really can't control my health. But things like my competition is a stress that I can control. And that is something where I'm not working right now. I don't go to school right now. How me as a veteran, as a 43-year-old veteran, how am I going to test myself? How do I prove to myself out of all these things that I've done, now what am I useful for? You know, well, this is where we use competition to kind of give that for people. So now when I talk to people and I want to explain to you, you can do this, we talk about competing. As all of those things can translate into competing. So all of those ways that I deal with stress, or anybody deals with stress, it is the same way as competing. You find your weakness, and then you have to come up with a plan for that weakness, and you attack it. And then when you finish at the end of 3 months, 4 months, or whatever competition you have, are you signed up for, now you get to test it in front of 3 people. And that goes with, you know, when you do your barbecuing, when you do Pokemon cards, when you do photography, whatever it is, we have some way to test ourselves and see our failures. But it's not a failure to me. It's just that identifier where you're at. I can't tell you where the rest of everything else is in my life, how it is. But the one stress and the one thing that I can judge the most is that competition. Now I can give some kind of immediate feedback for me to deal with it, and then or to deal with this stress. And for me, that is therapy. That is the therapy of how to deal with it. Putting yourself in through it, learning how to come to that big lift. You asked, how do you turn it on? Well, that's how I practice it. I walk up to that platform, and I don't need somebody to slap me in the face. I don't need the music. I try to remember everything that I learned in combat. That when you are taking those shots and you are behind that rifle and you're taking that breath, that same concept comes into lifting. Right before you take that bar off, and right before you do the squat or bench, you do the same things. You breathe, you brace for it, and you do your lift. So just translating all of that into working out and competing, this is how I deal with stress. You know, competition and working out is the way that I can take one stressor in my life and have control over it. I can change the programming. I can change whatever I want to be stronger, legs, chest, or whatever. And now where I don't have any other way to judge progress in my life, I can at least do that for competition. So much so that I want everybody else to learn that.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and now I'm throwing an expo. I want to give people the platform to show themselves.
You're having an expo?
Yeah.
Oh, when is that?
October 8th, 2022.
Okay. Is that going to be here in San Antonio?
Yeah, it's at La Concepcion Park.
Okay.
Conception Park. It got 6 basketball courts, so the whole inside is open area. 6 soccer fields, 4 baseball fields. So Highland Games, powerlifting, strongman, CrossFit right now. MMA I've already talked to them. Now it's just details. Sumo wrestling is just the details because I got to figure out where we're going to do that. Arm wrestling, I still haven't heard back from the guy, but then another sport like a battle of the badges. So like, it's kind of like a CrossFit mixed with every like law enforcement, firefighters kind of, workloads, like carrying a hose or running with vest and shooting after the event, So that's it. I want to show people where if you don't have that motivation in your life, then this is the way that me and people like me deal with that stress.
One thing that I thought was crazy was, I forget at what point it was in, but all of a sudden Rene's doing Highland Games. And it's funny because I always talk shit, and there's difference in different people, and I run my mouth more than I run my body, which it should be the opposite. But years ago, I told Nina, I was like, I want to do this and the other, and we were gonna go to. I already decided, fuck it. I'd been working at Tim's when he was at the old place, and I was like, I'm gonna go to this little Highland event here, and I think it was the Renaissance Fair or something like that. And it was hilarious because I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm committed, I'm doing it. And then I went online and I saw what the events were, and the weights of the stone and the weight of the pole. And I was like, no way in hell. And I think it was like 3 months out, but I had been, squatting 245 on each side of the bar. And I thought I was the shit at Tim's, And so, and then all of a sudden there's Rene. He's doing Highland Games.
So, that right there is what I try to fix. Right there, no matter what, the competition is about you. Yeah. That is it. That is what the one thing.
And I think that's where people get lost, is people look at it and they go...
Numbers.
They look at numbers and they look... I can't beat that guy. Why am I going to go? And I'm guilty of it at times.
We all are.
But to be able to say, you know what, I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about the other 11 people, 12 people, whatever it may be. I'm going to compete with myself. I'm going to see how far I can push myself, And I think that's where people get lost, One thing that I told Nina, I said, like I told you earlier, I'm kind of a cocky guy. And so every now and then God puts me in my place. And the last time that I was training with Tim, we were doing overhead presses, and I'm not a regular there like you guys, right? But I'm like, man, there's a lot of smoking hot chicks here. There's a lot of really muscular dudes, and Tim's I think we had like the little 15-pound weights on either side for doing overhead press, and I'm like, come on, man, I'm like. There's women in here, overhead pressing, 90 pounds and the bar. Give me something. And he goes, well, let me give you the big 15 pound, which
the bumper 15s.
But it looks like those damn Thin Mints you get from the Girl Scout cookies, And so it's very humbling to walk in there and see. Now, granted, there's a lot of people there's a lot of people in amazing shape there. So for a guy who's cocky as hell, I always told Nina, I was like, could you imagine I had a full head of hair and a great body? I'm a motherfucker to deal with now. Could you imagine if I had a great body and a full head of hair? I'd be terrible. But yeah, I was always something, and that was always something where it's so humbling that after a while I don't care anymore. And let's just get the workout in. It takes a little while for my machismo-ness to cool out a little bit,
but you know what you missed on though. Maybe you would have been great at Highland Games. Maybe your body type, your height, everything that is in the sport, you would have been perfect for it. That's the one thing is what I wanted to try, and I've been trying to give to people. I like this, like Highland Games. If you wanted to do it, and now that I know you want to do it, I'm throwing this event. You know what I mean? For that reason. This should be the reason you want to try it. It doesn't matter if you fail. It doesn't matter that, and I hate it. It sounds so hokey, but I 100% believe in it. The only failure is the failure to do it, to go out and try it. It might be the one thing that changes your life.
Yeah.
It can be the thing that motivates you to change whatever. But for the fear of failing or the fear of how we look in front of everybody else, or how am I going to do compared to everybody else? So what? That's, again, like you said, we forget that. We forget that this is for me.
Yeah. Why
did I get into this? When you step in that gym, that's what I tell everybody. They're like, I invite people to the gym all the time. Like, oh no, I'm not big enough to go to the gym. Neither was anybody else.
It's funny because I told Nina, she's like, you need to go back to Tim's. And I'm like, you're right, I need to go back to Tim's. I'm like, but I ain't going back to Tim's fat and out of shape.
No, Tim, so let me tell the Tim story real quick. And this is why I love Tim so much, and why, I've stayed with Tim and Michelle for so long, since the very beginning. Is I was trying to open up a gym, and, I was knowing that I was getting out of the military, and I went to every gym and was like, hey, I want to learn this process. I'll work for free. You teach me whatever you know, and I'll do whatever you want. And I got shot down by everybody, from West at TSS. I'm just some guy coming out of the street, Olympic Gym. Who else was open? I think I even went to talk to Jill at the time. Just everybody that I could think of that I had met, and I'm kind of like, this guy, whatever. Tim was like, shit, buddy, we'll learn together.
Yeah.
And I have been. And since I've been there, and what he's built and his mentality of it, is what I want to help build and bring other people to. And it's the mindset that is there. There's people that it doesn't matter where you come from, but they have the same common goal of getting stronger at all walks of life, at all levels, from guys going for the pros, guys just coming in, the 70-year-old something, chaplain that walks in off the street and wants to start deadlifting. Everybody has a common goal. So when you have that common goal, no matter at what level you are, you have this desperation to being better, and you'll put yourself through whatever it takes to get better. So that's what you have people trying to make these steps forwards. It doesn't matter what level they are. They don't care. But being surrounded by that's the motivating. That's why I invite people to heavy metal. Yeah, you might become an athlete. You might make pro later on, or you might do this. But that being and seeing other people, that motivation when you say, oh, I see Rene, there's a lot of me's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have a disease that they've overcome, or have shredded weight, or have went from a swimmer like Jackie who wins her pro card in strong women. That's it. Everybody that the majority of everybody steps to that. No, I take that back. 100% of everybody that steps to that door was not born like that. They found something that they wanted to change in their life, and they did it. And they did it for so long that it had a positive effect for them. So that's what I tell people they want to be around. If you surround yourself by that again, words are power. You hear people talking about the positive things, or you hear people talking about the things they've overcome, the plateaus that they had to overcome. Just being around that. For some people, be like, oh, maybe I don't want to be around that because everybody else is doing so well. But I think the opposite happens. You want that same type of success. You want to have what they have. But then you realize after being there so long, they're just putting the work in. That's it. They're coming in here because everybody that sees each other in there, we see each other. We know that you're doing the same work. You're putting that work in. It does not matter what you have on the bar. You're going to put the work in. And then when the body picks it up, you just start growing. Then the body starts changing. You start getting the look and everything else. And then what comes with that? Your confidence.
Yeah.
Then that translates into life. Your confidence is up. Now we're speaking out more. We're better for that job interview now, because now I have just this little bit of confidence that comes from an hour or two of working out, of meditating by myself, or whatever, however you want to call your working out, or whatever sport that you're getting into that would need that kind of training. You're just doing it, and you're doing it with other people with that same type of mindset. They have this goal of getting stronger, and they have this desperation. I gotta get there. I'm trying to be number one, because heavy metal is full of competitors.
Yeah.
And that is a great thing, because that is people who want to test themselves. That is people who are not afraid to fail. They'll do it in front of 3 people, and it's broadcasted live on YouTube. So, they are putting themselves out there. They are testing themselves. And that's what I tell people. That's what you want to be around. You want to be around people that aren't afraid to fail and to try something. And if it doesn't work for them, like Highland Games, that's why I did it. I saw athletes. I was a police officer, another veteran, Jason Spraggins. And I think he was going to Worlds, or he qualified for Worlds. And
I think I follow him on Instagram, yeah.
And Jason, he trains so much differently and was so explosive in the way he trains. I was like, man, what is he doing? Because it's not what I'm doing. It's not the same exercises. And then I followed him and started following the sport. And I was like, man, I want to try that. I'm a Hispanic guy and wearing a kilt. Yeah. Oh yeah, go. I don't think I haven't done 23andMe yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm.
I would look. I mean, you look great in a kilt. I know I would look delicious in a kilt. Let me ask you this: like, you've been exposed to a lot more different gyms than what I have. Most of my weightlifting was done like in high school, and then at heavy metal. Me and Nina had been going to Golds for a while. Is powerlifting, the community of powerlifting, the same, or is something different in heavy metal? Because I feel like people don't go to heavy metal just to lift and train. It's like everybody seems to get along. I mean, you're always going to have somebody who doesn't or whatever, but Tim and Michelle are great people. You're a great dude. Jackie's a great woman. There's a lot of people that have been there a long time. I think that contributed to the culture. But it's funny because when Tim and Michelle need help doing something for the event, or they need something going on, there's so many people that want to participate and be a part of it. And it's not just like, hey, I go to the gym and this is where I come 2-3 hours, 4 times a week. It almost seems like people will go just to hang out because they like the people there.
Community. That is it. It's the community that is built at our gym, at Heavy Metal. That is a type of community. And you're right. I have a buddy Roger owns Joe's Gym. Mm. I trained at Joe's Gym when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old. That's the Jefferson area. And it's just a different atmosphere. I have buddies from there that are, from Jeff area, and they're in that neighborhood. So, it's comfortable. It's older equipment. You know what I mean? Music's really loud. There's no air conditioning. Yeah. But if that's the environment that you like and that's the community you like, then that's where you fit in. And the same thing is like Texas Strength Systems, phenomenal athletes over there. And it's a huge place. Younger crowd, a lot of college student, and that's just a different community. But not one any better than the other. It's just what are your needs? Heavy metal just happens to be, because you said it earlier, you've got powerlifters there, and are these a powerlifting gym? But that's the one great thing about Tim. He's never considered that a strongman gym or a powerlifting gym. It's a strength training gym. And if we were to break down all of those sports and all of the exercises, they're pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. We focus on building the same things. Of course, some things are sport specific, like the bench press or the squat or stones. or like the pole or the caber for Highland Games. Everything is very sport specific, but for the majority of their training, it's all similar. You were doing overhead presses. I was doing overhead presses for powerlifting or for the Highland Games or for strongman. So the training is, or that community is not just a community of powerlifters. It's a community of athletes or people with strength training, period. But it is different from each gym, from each small gym. Not global gyms.
Gold's was very different, man.
Yeah.
And we never got a great vibe from there just because I told Nina, I said, it's so weird. Everybody's got headphones on and everybody's cell phone strapped to a piece of equipment while they do their rows or whatever they're doing. And it just seemed very, I don't know. It almost seemed like a movie, being there. I mean, they have some equipment that's great, but it just was very different. And it seems like when you go to a gym similar to the ones you described, where the equipment's a little rusty and there's chalk everywhere and there's no air condition and everybody's sweating their ass off, there's a different mentality than when you go into Golds where the air conditioning's running and, there's soft elevator music playing, and maybe that's why everybody has their damn headphones on. I don't know.
It's, again, I think it's the goals. And, but I don't know. I'm only saying this because this is how I feel I see things. But, I think it's just your goals. Some people work out just to get a sweat in. And then some people train. And when you go to these smaller gyms or strength training gyms, that's it. You're just training. And in working out, not even talking trash about working out, just moving or just doing those things is beneficial, and everybody should do just for like some of those endorphins. Sure. That you get, or just for your heart. You know what I mean? So Golds and all global gyms are good places if you're a self motivator. Yeah. You know what I mean? Arnold was built at Golds. Yeah. But then Arnold was a self-motivator. You know what I mean? If you can work by yourself, you can train by yourself.
That's interesting that you say that because, when I think about the difference between the two, you're right. It was hard for me to be motivated at Golds, but when you get into a place where, like the other gyms that you're referring to, that atmosphere does something to you and it turns something else on that a global gym may not turn on for you.
Exactly.
So, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
I love spending time in gyms, because that's people that go to gyms want to change something. Whether you were picked on, whether your dad was abusive, whether your husband was abusive, whether you want to lose weight, whether you want to pick up a girl, whether you want to pick up a guy, whatever it is, people are trying to change something about themselves. And just the simple fact of stepping into a gym, even though everybody can be like, oh, they're not doing the right things. It doesn't matter. That's a step forward into something that they want to change. And as slow as it may be or whatever, that's just why I love going to gyms. I see that in a person. When I went back to the perspective type of thing, that's my perspective of it. If you're in this place, then there's something that you want to change yourself. And I've been kicked out of gyms before, especially ones by my house, because I will hand out the heavy metal card or talk about another gym because I'll be like, hey man, listen, I see you training in here and I feel like you need something else now. And I'll talk about that. I was like, hey, you got this gym. The heavy metal doesn't have to be the spot for you, but you should try it out because it might be. And I do that because they might also be the other factor that we need at the gym. You know what I mean? We need to be around other athletes too. Sure. I need to surround myself around great athletes and I hope to invite other people that have that same type of mindset that will add to our community, so I would do that too. Like, oh, you're in here at this gym. You're trying to make a change for yourself. All right. You're way too big for this place. Come check out these other gyms. Come do that.
Yeah. I'd kick you out too.
Right? All the time, It never failed, but, oh well, I was not trying to take away business. I was just trying to.
I'm just picking on you.
No, I know, because I know when I say it out loud, I'm like, that's probably not the best.
But you know what? You're being honest, man, and that's one thing that I will say. Whether people agree with something you're going to say or they don't agree with something you're going to say, honesty is, you can't go wrong if you're honest. Whether you're on an opposite side of a conversation from someone else that disagrees with you wholeheartedly, if you're being honest, you're being honest. There's no malicious intent in being honest, and that's what people, I think people at times are not completely honest because they don't want to make someone uncomfortable, or they're not comfortable being completely honest. But with you, the vibes I've always got with you, conversations I've had with you in the past, you're honest.
We might miss something, though, if we don't. You know what I mean? Without that honesty, or without saying some of these things, we might miss something. And then the whole conversation might, to me, that's what I feel. Like, if I don't put it on the table, we might miss something. And then that could be something so impactful. So why not put it out there? Why not put it out there the right way? And because that, again, like I said, if we can be impactful with every single conversation, and that kind of drive you to a different point of view, or to motivate you, then that's it. Then bam, success. If not, all right, I learned something. Maybe I got to do something more. Maybe I got to be more honest about this. Yeah. But regardless, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it just goes back to that perception of it. Did I waste my time, or did I learn something about myself today? And if we just did that with literally everything, then we would start to accept that, man, I did figure out something, I learned something, or by sharing this, I got something out of it too. Something to help me emotionally. Like you're saying, sometimes we just need to get it out there. But we don't. None of this happens unless we have that conversation.
It's funny because I think there's a lot of times where we're concerned with being honest because we don't want to either upset somebody, or we're worried about seeing something in ourselves by vocalizing something. And, that happens to me from time to time. One thing that I had a conversation with Louis and Monica, about a week or so, we're talking about the food bank. And, one thing that I learned and I'm starting to change my perspective on certain things was, we went to go volunteer when they first opened. And, initially I never put much thought into who uses a place like the food bank, and I feel a little uncomfortable talking to them about this, but at the same time, it was my way of being honest with them and being honest with myself. That way, hopefully it'll help me grow, but I just assume, the guy that looks healthy asking for money on the corner is the same type of person that's going to the food bank. Well, I was completely wrong. Mm-hmm. I saw a room full of older folks who didn't have the income they used to have when they were younger. I saw a lot of mothers with children who didn't have a husband, or needed assistance, and it was eye opening, and I wanted to tell them that because it exposes me as a little bit of a dick, but at the same time, because I allowed myself to be honest with them, and I've told other people this too, the same thing. It's not just the conversation I had with them. It makes me saying it and being honest with myself. I can sit there and go, I need to reevaluate the way I look at a lot of things, not just the way I had looked at whoever was using the food bank. It makes you realize that there's more depth to things that you're having a shallow perspective on, and so having conversations like this and being able to listen to you, sometimes some of the things that we've talked about today, even things that we didn't record, I'm listening to you, and maybe there's been a few things, I don't know off the top of my head right now, because we've talked about so much today, but there's things where it's like, what you're telling me maybe not reaching me, may not be reaching me, but you're triggering a thought that I'm having of myself that's making me reflect on how I think of things, and maybe not directly the words that you're telling me, but the conversation we're having is making me reflect on something and making me reevaluate the way I view things, you know. And I think, again, going back to have an open and honest conversation, that's the only way you can grow as a person, you know. I grew up in a small town. We were all the same like-minded people. When I go home, we're still the same like-minded people. Yes. And I like that, man. I love that. It's my comfort zone, you know. But I like having conversations with people that have been through some shit, you know. I've never been a drug guy, you know, but I've had a conversation with a buddy of mine who was, you know, and to see where he's at now, where he's helping people with Narcotics Anonymous and things like that, it makes me go, you know, I was the type of guy that went, oh, I got on drugs, throw them away.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, fuck, here's my buddy.
Yeah.
And he was on drugs.
Yeah, we forget that.
And I'm like, you can't throw him away. Yeah. You know, you got to help the guy. Because now here he is helping people, you know. I didn't mean to cut you off. No, go ahead.
There's a, you know, in saying that, you know, you triggered that in me where I think all of this comes from, for me saying all of these things, me wanting to be the lead by example, was because my father was like that. You know, they own a ministry in the West Side off of Guadalupe Street, so right in the middle of the West Side. And they give out clothes and furniture. And my dad would use his VA benefits to fund that place. And I could never understand that. And my dad was always talking trash about illegals and, you know, like, oh, man, people are here and they're just, you know. But he just complained about them and never talked down about them. You know what I mean? And then because that bothered him so much that he would say things like, oh, man, these people are just begging for money. You know, it's kind of the same thing. So instead of complaining, he wanted to change it. He wanted to change that community. Instead of saying that all these people are just doing this, they're not doing this. Well, then he made a place. And he made a place that if they wanted to get off drugs, they can get drugs. If they wanted, that's where I learned about the food bank. If they wanted or needed food, that they could get it from there. If they wanted to get off drugs, that they could go to this place and they would send them to a drug rehab. But that was just it. That if we sat back and complained about all of these things, then what are we doing other than identifying it? He didn't like it so much that he wanted to change it. Yeah. And he would help people get their citizenship. He would help find them the ways to go through that process. He wouldn't just sit back and complain like, oh man, these lazy people. He would find jobs and post them. All right, here, you know, lazy ass people, here you go. Now I got a job for you. Now you don't got to look for it. We got jobs for you. So it was just that mentality that he had to help the people, because I think then he learned himself by dealing with all these people, talking to all these people, that all of these situations are not the same. Yeah. You know, we can take any headline news from border issues to riots to political issues, anything, and all of the judgments and comments and whatever is posted all over media is just such a small point of view, because we just categorize whether good or bad all into what we experience or what the other person experienced, and we run with it. And this is the way that all poor people act. This is the way that all illegals act, or all these people act. But until you forget, hey, some of those people are my friends and family, and they're not that way. Yeah. You know, why am I saying or have these feelings about all these things? You know, I'm not getting the whole story, but I'm making an assumption off of the little bit. And you run like that for years. I was like that. How am I going to give these homeless guys money? What the hell? You know, whatever. And then you start to learn, really, like now. Can you imagine the amount of homeless people after Corona? You know, if you drive through Austin, how that grew of homeless people. Now there's a reasoning why people are homeless. They're not just there because they want to be there, because that is an awesome life to live on the side of the street and just do drugs and be addicted to stuff that you can't, not that you can't control, but it's got a hold of you so much. Like, who wants to put themselves? How is that luxury? You know? But then we forget that there is a human in everybody. There's a human in those negative things that, even though we don't agree on, we don't know what they're running from. You know, we don't know why somebody is an alcoholic. We don't know what what they're trying to cover up. You know, we don't know why they have money problems. Did they get divorced? Did they get hooked on drugs? Did they just lost their business through coronavirus, or whatever the reason? Why come up with that general statement that these people they're just out here begging for money because they don't want to do anything else?
Well, I think, and I'm guilty of it too. But I think a lot of that also is when we can label people when we can paint them with a broad brush, that we don't have to do anything about it.
Right.
Like unlike your dad who did do something about it, and it's like it's we're quick to complain, but we're less eager to put in some effort into changing it. And I think a lot of times when like I said, I'm guilty of it too. When we complain about something or someone or groups of someone, it's easier to do that than it is to put any effort into it to try and make it better.
That takes bravery.
Yeah, it really does.
To want to make a change, to want to make a change that's something that big, or an attempt, to make a change or to help out. That takes bravery, and for some reason, I think we tend not to do it because we're worried about what people are going to say. As I was like that. I was selfish growing up. My wife would be like, "You were,"
My wife would be, "You still are."
It is. I didn't think like that, and I know, this be hokey. As we go older, we become wiser. But yeah, it is true.
It's true.
Being retired slowed me down. That's where I think why I had to sit back and change. One of the hardest things that I think veterans or anybody that gets taken out of what they were doing, whether it's work, maybe you retired at 60 now, then what? Everything you've known is to go, work, make money. That is, you're worried about the success of your company, the success of your household, whatever. But then when that's all taken away, when you don't have the same common goal because your work did that, your work was common goal was we're going to make more money, we're going to make this business. Then what? Now you're at home thinking about it. What did I do? What am I doing now? Did everything that I do in my whole life, is it worth anything? And then I think this is when you sit and you start to contemplate life and start to think about everything. And even when we get into that kind of leads into depression. And when you get into those depression moments and you just don't leave your house or, whatever it is, you're just thinking. I know I got to that point, and that made me reevaluate the way that I thought, the way that I looked at things, and are people really the way that they are? Because the people that I was meeting were not that way.
Yeah.
The people that I was meeting at my mom's and dad's ministry, they needed that food.
Yeah.
They weren't going to get it anywhere else. And that dollar donation for clothes or furniture or whatever, they needed it because they have no other opportunity. We can say all day long, well, if you want better, just go out and work harder. Yeah, right. There's only so many bosses. There's only so many assistant managers, and if those positions aren't there, if those opportunities aren't there, we can't just wish them. So that means this person that needs this food, there is not that opportunity for them. So then let's create an opportunity of a way to get them food. Let's create a way to get them a job just to hold them over until they can get into that step. So they can get to this feeling of figuring it out, this feeling of, all right, I've taken care of myself and my family. Now let me help somebody else, because that's how I got to this point. As we get older, I think that just happens. That just happens that we do slow down and start to think about it. Well, at least for me. Yeah. I don't know about for everybody else. I don't know if they come up to these kind of revelations or if you even want to,
well, there's a lot of effort that's involved with seeing a problem and fixing it.
We do it every day. Yeah. We identify problems every single day, And sometimes I get mad when somebody talks about something. They're like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. Well, what did you do? Or did you vote? Did you go out and protest? Did you go to the food bank? What did you do to help fix that issue? And if you didn't answer, then where are we at? We didn't go forward. We didn't take a step back. We didn't do anything. We just sat here and went over how things are bad. And that's what we will do here too, in our homes. We'll sit at home and we'll just think of how bad everything is. And, I have all of these things piling up. But until you take that step to just want to change one of those things, you want to change whatever it is, you have to make the effort. If it bothers you that much, then you should bother you that much to want to make the effort to change it.
Yeah.
If not, then maybe it's just a stress that you're putting on yourself and you're creating for no reason at all. For example, I don't care how the riots and stuff are going on in Seattle. I really can't do anything about it. I really can't change the government. It's not Texas. It's not Texas people. It's not Texas law enforcement. Whatever, everything happens in all these other states, I cannot do anything about it because I don't think those people operate like we do. I don't think every state operates the same way. I don't think we have the same mentalities. Whatever it is, I cannot stress out about what everybody's doing and what all their other problems are. But if they're here and I can fix it, that's what I should be stressed about. Because if we fix ours and the people focused in their state fix theirs, then what are we complaining about?
We're heading the right direction.
We're heading the right direction. But it seems like nowadays we focus on fixing everybody or problem. All we're doing is identifying and we're so overwhelmed with all of these problems versus like, all right, 100 problems. This is the one that I can affect. And for example, I can affect your physical fitness and how to show you how to use competition as your therapy. Well, then that builds your confidence. Then maybe you go to apply for a job, or maybe you're not at home staring at your screen looking at all these racial type of posts and stuff like that, and you're not going to be so lonely that you go shoot up a school, or you're going to be so lonely that you believe all kinds of crazy things that you read on the internet, or you're not going to be so lonely, or you get enough confidence that now you're out talking to people. Whatever it is, that's my contribution.
Yeah,
I can do that. It's not going to fix world hunger. It's not going to fix anything, but maybe it gives somebody enough confidence that will make that next step. That will be like, you know what, this fix helped me, so let me fix a problem too. I tell people all the time, be infectious.
Yeah,
be infectious with this. I know it sounds kind of hippie, but with this kind of positive motivation, with this outlook on life. Because if the next person tries it and talks to these people and has this conversation in their home, then that person has that conversation. Then we realize that that's the bravery of it. That's us taking steps forward. That's us wanting to change these things, not just talking about it. Even if it's the littlest thing, we can all make an impact. And that sounds so ridiculous and so cheesy and so hokey, but we can.
It's important, and it's important that we make that effort. You know, I grew up with I always tell everybody I grew up with the town good guy. He was my dad. And I actually had a conversation with my younger cousin about him recently, and we were talking, and she just knows him as Popo Bear, you know. And he's got some he's got a testimonial that he recorded, and he talks about being an alcoholic and doing drugs when he was younger, and you know, running around, a little bit of a womanizer, you know. And we're having a conversation, and her mind's blown, and it's, you know, it kind of goes back to, you know, my friend who did drugs, and you can't throw him away. And it's like, she knows him as the greatest guy on the planet. And it's like, you know, he's always been a good guy. He just did some things that were unfavorable, you know, that he probably shouldn't have been doing. But, you know, when we were kids, Dad grew up poor. And I asked him, he used to live in Mathis, and I asked him once, I said, how did we end up in George West? He said, well, my dad left us. We had nothing in the house. We had no food. And my mom said, we're going to have to go live with your uncle in George West because we don't have anything to eat. And that's how they ended up in George West. But I was babied by I'm my mom's only kid. She was younger than my dad. I was baby compared to my siblings. And so I remember being in high school. It was wintertime, and Dad was friends with the game warden, and he would call. His name was Mitchell Pavlik. He'd call Dad, "Hey, Bear, come over. I got 12 deer. I need skinned. You can have 8 of them." And so Dad would wake me and my brother Vidal up, and it'd be 10:30, 11 o'clock at night on a school night, freezing outside. And, man, I bitched about everything. And I didn't give a shit about school, but I was like, "Dad, it's a school night." Dad's like, "I don't care, let's go." And Dad's one flaw to me, I'm sure he had several, but Dad's one flaw to me was Dad never explained to me, "Hey, we're going to do this because of this." Dad was the guy that said, "Just shut up because I told you," And so we'd be out there deboning deer till midnight, cleaning them, throwing them in ice chests. And I would complain I don't know how he put up with me, but I'd complain the whole night. Why are we doing this? Our freezer's already full. We don't need this deer. It's cold. My hands hurt. Oh my God. I'm surprised he didn't stab me. But I learned later on, we didn't need the deer meat. But he was taking it to people that didn't have food,
right.
On the other side of town. I didn't learn that till years later. And that's the kind of guy he was. And I get a little hurt from it because if he had told me we're going to feed people who don't have food, I would have shut the hell up, man. And I would have got to work. But now when I look back and reflect and think about those stories, I just go, man, my dad was a great guy. And I was a bitch.
I was the same way. I had the same way, and I think the same way that you do with that as well. Because me and my father butted heads. He was such a character. They call him Mad Dog for a reason, and he was just such a character. And man, I think some people just hated him, but because they didn't realize that, they didn't realize that the people he had to train were for a reason, to survive Vietnam. The things that he went through, the stress that he was trying to put on people was to prep you for those most outrageous times of your life, because hopefully, that's my wife.
Oh man,
can I call you back? All right, let me call you back.
Tell her you love her on the podcast.
I'll tell you back. So,
dude, that's recorded.
Oh,
that I love you's recorded.
So I lost my train of thought.
Your dad.
Oh, my dad.
Training people in Vietnam.
Yeah, so that stress that he put on people, that was for a reason, and he did not explain that. I didn't know that until I was shot, until I was in combat. I knew that was the stress. That's what it was all for. It prepped me, but now I explain to my kids. I tell them that, and that by far is the most important thing now, that I have the time with my kids, and then I teach them everything, whether it's getting shot, whether it's dealing with the leg, whether it's joining the military, whatever it is. I try to teach them something, because I agree with you. My dad was the guy that he did 32 years in the military, an old school military. So you don't ask questions. When I first was in, you didn't ask questions. I was like that too. When I got promoted, the saying is, it takes an act of Congress when you make 7 to demote you. So when I got promoted, man, that was like, you can't tell me anything now. You do what the hell I say to do, because in my mind, I have a plan. That was combat arms. When you change jobs to military intelligence, you're with all these brains, and they tell you to ask why. So when you have all these privates and kids that are underneath subordinates that are like, "What do you mean why? Why do we got to do that, Sergeant? Why?" And you have to explain that. But I saw the importance of it. You're absolutely right, because then that could have changed the work ethic for it, and 2, the real lesson behind it. If you were learning, this is exactly why we're doing it. This is where the food's going to. This is what people are not getting because of whatever reason. Then we did miss that lesson, and now I try not to. If we're working at the food bank, if we're doing a Wounded Warrior Project event, I try to talk to my kids and tell my kid, or if you can deal with me, if you can deal with the stress that I put on you, then you can handle a boss. You can handle somebody telling you, hey, you got to work this many hours or on this holiday, and it not be a big thing because you learn how to deal with that stress, and you learn that, there is a reason why somebody's putting me through this. There's a reason why this boss is mad, or whatever. I think we do as parents forget those teaching moments, and now I try to. I'm kind of like with you. I got to talk to my kids, and even after I get after them, I'm like, do you understand why I got after you? Because I didn't,
Yeah, I didn't either. It was because he told me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I think when people understand why they're doing something, it changes their perspective on what they're doing. But at the same time, it gives them insight into the end goal. And it gives them an opportunity to maybe see something that I'm not seeing.
Exactly.
So that now all of a sudden, it gives them an opportunity to think. And it gives them an opportunity to go, well, I see what our end goal is, but what if we do X, Y, and Z? And you might be getting a perspective from somebody that you wouldn't get a perspective from, being that you hadn't told them what the end goal was or the reasoning behind something. So it's an opportunity for everybody to learn and grow. And I think, when I look back on it, that's just the way it was. Dad gets after me all the time because I don't know Spanish. And he even called me about probably 3 or 4 months ago. And he's like, you don't know Spanish?
Yeah, I do.
And I'm like, why I tell him? I even told him, I said, ask yourself that question. I said, because who would have taught me Spanish?
Yeah.
It would have been you. But you and Mom, y'all, that's how y'all talk behind our backs. Was it you did in Spanish? Like, what did y'all say? I remember being a little kid going, what did you just say? And he'd go, don't worry about it.
I'm the opposite. I learned for that reason.
Did
I
you?
understand it, but I cannot speak a lick of it.
Yeah. And now that I'm older, I can understand it a lot better than I can speak it. If I'm drunk, I'm fluent.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
but that's the hard part. But anyway. Well, Rene, we're pushing 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
brother.
I know. My wife's texting
And
me.
she's texting you. But man, I appreciate your time. Tell me what's going on or anything you have coming up, events, places people can find you.
A couple of things to take a look at. We haven't dropped it officially, but everybody pay attention out or watch out for next October 8th. It's going to be called Battle at the Alamo City.
That's 2022?
2022.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to set myself up for success a little bit longer, give people that relief of, all right, things are opening up a little bit more so we can support this. So that's coming up. Strongman, Highland Games, powerlifting, sumo wrestling. Still trying to work on MMA and arm wrestling. Doing a thing called Battle of the Badges. Hopefully we can get that set up. But expecting around maybe 500 to 1,000 athletes, and then trying to push in or squeeze in about 200 vendors, local vendors, trying to make everything extremely affordable.
Yeah.
Not just a way. This is more like a community event, a way to showcase all the different sports and more so the athletes.
Yeah.
These expos, we've never had one in San Antonio. And when like the Arnold's one of the biggest expos. So trying to get to that thing, trying to give people that opportunity to compete at an event like that. So that's works in for next year. Here soon in the next couple of months, we'll post that. I'll have the website up and we'll be able to really, really push that. One of the other things I've been working on is there's this other organization called Lone Star Para Athletic Development Academy.
Okay.
So that, of course, is for adaptive athletes, civilian or military, where that want to kind of push through the pipeline of maybe competing in the Paralympics.
Okay.
And there's also other events like military events like Invictus Games, Warrior Games, and the Valor Games. Those are Olympic style events that the military has for either wounded or older veterans, and it's kind of an adaptive sport. So they're just starting here in San Antonio, and the point is, it is an academy. In July, I'll be holding an introduction to para powerlifting, and we'll also have the Paralympic head coach here to oversee our training. But that's it. We're now trying to become the Texas lead for Paralympics here.
Awesome, man.
And I mean, so much to the point where they want to become the national hub for adaptive athletes. You know, stuff like para bench. That's what I coach. So it's just benching with your feet up. But if you have anybody that's interested, or anybody out there that's listening that has a veteran interested in doing any type of adaptive sports, or they know somebody that has some kind of disability, look up Lone Star Para Athletic Development Academy. You do have to apply. It is a membership, but that membership covers your coaching, equipment, pretty much anything that you need as an athlete to compete to that next level.
Okay.
And that's just growing here. We're starting to see those events move into able-bodied, like powerlifting. USAPL just signed with them. I want to make a big push to introduce this to Texas high school powerlifting, just since a new rule came out for under UIL to make more inclusive for adaptive athletes.
Yeah.
So there's a real big push for that.
And that's
so
awesome.
Perfect timing for it. You know, it's starting to pop up, especially those of you that are hurt or wounded or sick and think that, there's nothing out there for me. Just one of those people that there is something for you out there, and it also becomes a therapy, not just something physically building. Sure. So that's out there. I still work with Wounded Warrior Project. If you guys, military guys, are out there, San Antonio, this is Mill City, USA. There's a bunch of military events going on here in San Antonio. We talked about it earlier. If you have a veteran that's out there that needs help, that needs to go talk to people, then start looking for it, because that veteran's not. You know, start handing it to them. Be like, hey, there's a veteran organization that's doing this event. I think I'm doing one in July 10th. Gonna suck because I should have known the name of it. I just signed up for it, but it's all these nonprofits here in San Antonio, which there are a lot of, that these guys can go, and it's for veterans and their spouses that can meet and kind of figure out that they're not the only ones going through this. They're not the ones that are the only ones that have to deal with the stresses of PTSD and for their kids and finding a job and dealing with all this. That's the main reason.
And I mean, that's important. You know, like you said earlier, you know, there's veterans that'll go out and look for that, but there's a lot that won't. So if you know a veteran, help guide them in that direction, right? Yeah.
And if you don't know, you know, we have a way to show links, or we have to share, then you can share my information, you know, and then I'll point you in that right direction. As soon as I get that website, I'll push that website to you. And that's one of the other things that I'm trying to do too, is help promote those nonprofits that are here in San Antonio. Because there are a lot, and they do a lot for San Antonio. Now it's just trying to get them more exposure to the people that need it, you know. And then hopefully this event that we throw next October, that I'm trying to take a bunch of birds and take one big stone and kill all the birds at once. So,
well, I mean, that'll be an interesting event. That's exciting, man. And to have all those different types of event in one location, that, I mean, you're going to have things that people in San Antonio haven't been exposed to, just in visually seeing these events occur. So just, again, I had to throw this in there to caveat on that. That was the reason I wanted at that sports complex. Yeah. It's run by San Antonio Sports. Texas High School Powerlifting Association has the largest number of members compared to any other federation. That means there's kids in high school more than there is in the federations put together. So why aren't we seeing more of these sports? Why aren't we seeing that once the kids graduate, what are they going to do? They're not going to go play college football. Where do those dreams come from of being that athlete that they want to be, even though football wasn't their sport? Putting them into strength sports, introducing them just like club sports and anywhere else. I'm always an athlete. Yeah. You know, I think there's all of these kids that aren't making it into college. You know, I still go to high school reunion softball tournaments. I still go play football whenever they play full contact football. I'll go out there and put bats because we're still athletes. So now there's all of these sports here in San Antonio, here in Texas, that happen on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, that people aren't privy to. So now
finally be able to show you, okay, there's all of these sports out here. This is all that's out in San Antonio. And guess what? Now this helps you out. Physically, this can help you out. Now we're using this sport, not just so you find out about sport, now you're going to find out how to use this sport for yourself.
Well, I think one thing that I had a hard time dealing with right after high school was finding an avenue to compete. And I think a lot of people, once they kind of get out of that high school, college, even if it's intramural, you no longer have, or it's not obvious to you where you can go to compete. And you itch for that, And a lot of times, one thing that, as I've gotten older, you start to see things a little bit differently. There's still avenues to compete. It may not be in an event that you're used to competing in, but there's still avenues for you to compete in. And I think that's huge, man, because I think that's what a lot of people lack is there's when you have that in high school, and you have that in college, you crave that competition. And not just that, the exercising, the endorphins you get from it, from being healthy, but being able to, like you said earlier, challenge yourself, hit a goal, miss a goal, reload, get back into it, and go to the next competition. So being able to have those avenues to compete, at a young age as ours in the mid-40s, to still be able to compete. And I think people that have a competitive nature sometimes forget about that, and they forget that, hey, it may not be football, baseball, or track, or swimming, or whatever, but there's other avenues. You just have to be exposed to them.
And that's it. That's just it. We go right back into about the whole conversation. Is if we don't talk to people, if I just happen to listen, you're like, man, I wish I could do something. That's it. That without this conversation, we can't, or these conversations, we can't be like, hey man, there's powerlifting. Why don't you just sign up for this competition in 3 months and we'll prep for it, regardless if you like it or not, regardless if you're ready for it or not. Let's just get it. If you like it, you like it. You don't, you go. We'll go on to the next sport.
Yeah.
But without that, people just don't know. They don't know about Highland Games. Mm-hmm. I didn't know about Highland Games. But I'm just like that. I know you're an athlete. I see the baseball stuff all the time, and I see the love for the game, and that's just it. I'm around my friends, and we compete at everything, whether it's board games or I can feel that competitiveness.
It's fun, man.
So why not? Why not? It's just a little bit of pain in Menge, know.
And a handful of Tylenol.
Yeah.
Also, anything else?
No, Gabe, that's pretty much it.
And if you need a badass tattoo, who
you need a badass tattoo, go see Mario Sanchez. He trains at Heavy Metal Fitness. I love the guy's work. Once Mario Sanchez tattoos, all one word. Then of course I can't forget Tim in Heavy Metal Fitness. Yeah. If you're looking for that place to train, if you're looking for that new part in your life, or that something that you're missing in life, to be around people, and you need that motivation, come out to Heavy Metal Fitness, or really go out to any gyms, the gyms that I've mentioned, whether it's Joe's Gym, Texas Strength Systems. Sorry if I forget anybody, because I got all the gyms up, brain fart, but anything, just get out there and look. And if you want to make a change, make a change. Stop waiting, stop taking, or stop waiting for the best time to do it, or the best time that you're ready to do it. Just take a step forward. That step forward will tell you everything that you need to know, at least to take the next step.
Sure.
And that's it. It's all about progress. Because if we're in our 40s now, guess what? This is it. It's half. That's half.
I told my buddy Rich at work, I said, you know what? My father-in-law turned 88, 89 the other day. I said, I'm 44 and everything hurts. Yeah. So I need to start doing something about that and get this body a lot tighter. So we'll probably be seeing you more at the gym, man.
All right, Gabe, come on down. That's it. Let's motivate each other in there. And again, like I said, it sounds so hokey, but once you're going through it, you're like, all right, this is exactly what Rene was talking about.
Well, I appreciate your time, brother.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.